You know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
Very thankful for the 12th man. They've won us games.
These other schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
Our skill set worked great together. Like, he was more speed and I was more power, and then we put together, it was like thunder and lightning, you know.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
If only this show could be as good as the Aggies are on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Welcome into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan here on Wednesday, May the 8th, 2024. OB, good morning, buddy.
Yeah, unfortunately, too often our show's about as good as Rice pitching with the bases loaded.
Oh, my gosh. Walk. God.
5 times.
Yeah,
5 times.
But you know what? I hope they bury Rice every time like that. I don't
course,
care, right? Like, I want every opponent that ever plays A&M to lose by 13 runs.
Well, I think
12 runs.
A big part of the walks is there's already been 4 home runs.
Right.
You're just like, I can't give them anything good to hit. But
yep. Well, they finished the non-conference undefeated, first time since 2015, second time ever, 25-0, and a 16-3 run rule victory over Rice yesterday.
Yeah, I was there.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was hot. But what is it? Grahovic, I think, opens up the game with a home run. And then Montgomery gets out of the slump with a home run.
In a major way.
And then Lavalette comes in with a home run. I already forgot who hit the fourth one. Was it Sorrell? And did you see the catch that he made out left? He may be the best defensive outfielder I've ever seen.
He's pretty good.
The plays he makes with his glove are spectacular.
Yeah, look.
I mean, he has this diving catch. I think the bases were loaded.
I love ruling a team. I love scoring 16 runs. And I like seeing, I should say, our stars getting back to being the stars that we expect, especially as they're about to go on the road against a team in Ole Miss that can beat you, just like LSU can beat you.
It's an SEC team, so I would expect A&M to win the series and maybe even sweep it. That's what I would expect because they're better.
Yeah.
But you got to go and you got to play to your ability.
Got to go play the game. So here's a couple notes for you. 12-0 in in-state competition. So everybody they've played in the great state of Texas, they've defeated. Now, obviously, when you're undefeated in the midweek and there's only currently one SEC team from Texas, that's what it would mean. But half the teams you took on in the midweek, all from the state of Texas, and A&M was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have liked to see them play more Texas teams. But the biggest one was that win over in Austin, right?
That was a good win.
That was a good
win. By the way, that team from Austin's playing a little bit better right now. They've won a couple series in a row.
Now, I don't know how good the opponents were.
Right.
But, yeah.
I think Oklahoma is running away with the Big 12 at the moment.
Yeah.
But regardless, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is this team getting back on track.
Didn't Oklahoma lose a series to Lamar?
Is that right? Is that this year?
I think so. Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that screen. Green. All green. The green means W's. Red means L's, right? All green, all day, every game.
By the way, our Social Center baseball expert was nodding that, yes, Lamar did.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate you. So undefeated in Texas, undefeated in the midweek. And let's get into some other numbers out here. Jace Lavalette is now third place for career home runs at Texas A&M. He's got 47 in his short career at Texas A&M.
In less than 2 seasons.
So does that mean he's going to hit 30-plus this year?
How many did you say he has this year?
I think he's got 26. Is that right, Nick? 26 homers on the year?
Yeah, I would bet on that.
4 more?
Yeah, I would bet on that because I'm figuring, they got 3 games against Ole Miss, and then 3 games against Arkansas. And then I don't know how many games they'll play in the regionals, and then I expect them to play at least 2, probably 2 in the super regionals, and then, be in Omaha for 2 weeks. Yeah, I can find 4 home runs in there.
The all-time leader for Texas A&M, Dalen Holt, 56 homers. So Lavalette is now 9 homers from being the all-time leader.
He might be the all-time leader before the end of this year.
You think he's got 10 home runs?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd bet on that. But
you wouldn't be surprised.
But I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
Because if he makes contact, anytime he makes contact, especially if it goes in the air, I'm like, okay, he made contact. It's airborne. He's better chance than not that it's going out.
Right.
I don't know. I really don't know this, okay? But I bet if you looked at how many hits he has, total hits, and then what's the percentage of his total hits that are home runs, I bet it's pretty high.
It's got to be high.
And if you throw it into extra base hits, it's probably astronomical.
But he gets on base regardless, right? Like he's really good at getting on base. Slugging percentage is very high. But when you think about what he's been able to do, and what was it, 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, he was behind Braden Montgomery in the home runs. Mm-hmm. So that little, he stayed. I wouldn't say he was hot during that stretch, but he stayed somewhat consistent while Braden had that little 0 for 18 slump. But it was good to see Braden get back to being Braden.
Boy, the home run he hit, it was. I don't want to call it a line drive, but it never got too high. But man, it didn't take long getting out, right?
Yeah.
And I think it did hit the scoreboard. They said it was. I think they said it went 300 and I can't even remember 390 feet. I said, well, it must have hit the scoreboard then because it sure seemed like it had a lot of oomph behind it.
Slump buster, right? I mean,
yeah, it had a big double too.
Yeah,
off the wall.
Going into your last road series of the SEC, get back on track.
Yeah,
you get your trio. Look, put it this way: when those 3 are dialed in, that means everybody else is dialed in.
Well, they
too,
scored
right?
30 runs in their last 2 games.
Sounds like their offense is back.
So they may be back on track.
Right. And not that Rice is this juggernaut that they used to be. We recognize that. It doesn't matter, though. Like, when you're in a slump, take on Little Sisters of the Poor. You just find a way to win.
Yeah, but they've got good pitching. Sisters.
I was going to say, Rice, with their 5 walks in a row to allow a bunch of 11 walks in the game for Rice. That's enormous amount, especially when half of them came in an inning.
Yeah, it was. But by then I'd already left, and I walked from Bluebell to here to TexAgs, and turned on the radio to go home. And there's Monaco talking about the walks and Brauninger, and then it's like, and ball 4 again, and ball 4, and it's another one, and it's another one. So. But you know what? The game was well in hand well before then. Like we said, there's already 4 home runs before that.
If I remember correctly, Lavalette last year hit 21 homers, and Callie can fact check me there. Gavin Grahovic has 18. He might catch Jace's number from last year.
He might.
And here's the thing: a lot of Jace's production came in SEC play, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. I think Grahovic has been just consistent all year long.
Yeah, and I wonder what are the home run numbers given up by Ole Miss pitching. I wonder if they give up a lot of home runs.
We're putting Callie to work today here on the show.
I know that 21 has to be right if he's got 26 this year and 47, right?
Right.
Okay, so yeah, 21 is correct.
There. Thank you.
Yeah.
Math.
Yeah. All those numbers and things, I get confused.
Well, bottom line is they did what they had to do, and they did it quickly, and now they move on and try to finish their last SEC series. Before we go around the room and say hello, by the way, this is Coffee Talk presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of mornings by going to texags.com/coffee. Opie, I saw this note yesterday, or actually this morning, on CBS Sports. The Players Era Festival. Are you familiar with this?
The Players Era Festival.
Yep. It's
an
NIL event, basically. It's going to include 8 teams in college basketball in 2024, and in 2025 is expected to double the tournament. And here are the brands going to this event here in 2024. According to CBS Sports,
Now, this is basketball?
This is basketball.
Okay.
Alabama, pretty good basketball program.
Yeah. Supposedly number one early.
Houston, pretty good basketball program.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, pretty good basketball program.
Yeah, they're dipping a little bit right now, but it seems like they're never down too long.
Oregon,
Dana Altman.
Rutgers.
Rutgers.
San Diego State, just in the Final Four a couple years ago.
Yeah, and that where Kawhi Leonard went.
And then, Texas A&M.
And the Aggies.
Vegas.
I think we need to cover it.
I mean, like, let's be honest. We talked about Vegas yesterday from a football perspective. It would only be fair if we went to go cover the Aggie basketball team in Las Vegas with the world's best partier and his sidekick, Olin Buchanan.
Yeah, the world's who else is going?
I mean, I'm sure Billy will be there.
That's the world's best partier.
Yeah, it ain't me. That's for sure. That's a cool.
Yeah, I'm a derelict in Vegas.
Yeah,
I am.
I can't see you that way.
Yeah, it's Vegas though. I'm
smoking cigarettes?
A derelict. No, I don't do that. I'd never smoke a cigarette. But okay. I just like Vegas.
Yeah,
I do.
You like the shows?
I've seen some shows there and I liked them. Okay. Yeah, I took my son there when he was like 11 to see shows.
Okay.
We saw the Blue Man Group, and we saw this guy named Terry Fader, who's a ventriloquist, and we saw David Copperfield, and he brought me on stage, and he made me disappear.
Did he really?
So I know how he does it.
Oh, now you know?
Yeah.
Is it pretty like, is it like one of those like, oh, I could have figured that out? Or
It's ingenious in the way they come up with the ideas.
Okay.
But yeah.
I saw George Carlin there years back. I think in like 98.
That would have been fun.
He was good. It was good. So yeah, look, and there's the other tournament they're going to be in. Is it in Myrtle Beach? Is that which tournament?
Really, they're going to do that South Carolina deal.
I know they're doing another tournament. Another fact check for me, Callie, please.
Got it.
Fact check central. But yeah, if this now A&M has not announced this. This is from CBS Sports, and apparently the Players Era Festival is going to be announced later on this week. But A&M rumored to be one of the teams involved in it.
Great. I think that's wonderful. And quite frankly, A&M, and we're talking about next season.
Yep, next season.
A&M projects to be as good as any of those teams.
Yep.
And better than some.
Well, we'll talk about that throughout the show. We'll talk more Aggie baseball. I got some football stuff to get into. Your good friend Brian Kelly. We'll talk about him on buying players. And then DraftKings has got some betting odds on Texas A&M. So we'll talk about all that here on the program. If you want to be a part of the conversation, call us, text us, 979-693-1150. That is the phone number to be a part of the conversation this AM. Those of you watching on the CW, hello. On the Zone listening, hello. And, of course, TexAgs.com and YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe for us, please. Let's go around the room and say hi. Nick Savage is behind the glass. Nick, good morning.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, nothing much. Just I was able to go out and shoot some sights and sounds yesterday at the game.
I saw you there.
That will be coming out going forward. We're looking forward to the Arkansas series for that content piece more than anything. But going back to what y'all were talking about, Ole Miss, they have allowed, 46 home runs as a staff in SEC play. That ranks in the bottom two. They're only one above Auburn, so they're in the bottom of the SEC.
So we can see some home runs this week.
They give up a lot of home runs.
They allow a lot of home runs. So hopefully A&M can take advantage of that. And I thought it was crazy that I was like, when A&M won last night, I was like, cool. That must be the first time they've ever gone undefeated in non-conference play. But in 2015, they were also 25-0. So it's only happened twice in program history for A&M. So what an accomplishment for Coach Lawson-Egel and all those guys over there.
There were only a couple games this year that were in doubt in the midweek, right? And by like Prairie View, I think they had to come back late.
And Texas Southern, I think, was like that. So
there was like twice that I was like, I'm trying to look
I think they had to walk off UTSA, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. Yeah, April 9th. There you go. So that was the other one. So it was TSU and UTSA. Texas State was a beatdown of epic proportions, as many of them were. All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant. Callie Gardner there. Callie, hello.
Hello, good morning. How are y'all?
I was a little grumpy when I walked in today, OB.
Today?
Yeah, I usually don't walk in grumpy. I find grumpiness.
But I
don't usually walk
I've been
in.
awake since 2:30. So
why?
I woke up and didn't fall back asleep.
How terrible is that?
I'm fine now, but around 2 this afternoon, I'm probably going to be crashing.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be. Callie, let's talk about you, though. What's going on at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center?
There's a lot going on. Nick kind of stole my line, unfortunately, but I was going to give y'all Ole Miss's home run numbers, but I have their numbers in overall, not just conference. They've given up 63. So I feel like we're going to maybe see the ball fly a little bit this
So
weekend.
even the midweek games that they're supposed to win, they're giving up home runs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's take a look at this on Ole Miss. I'm looking at their record. They're home and away, all right? Their home record at Ole Miss, 17-10. Away, 7-11. Obviously, as most teams are, better at home.
Interesting stats.
Is it interesting?
It is interesting.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
I have a little note. This is from Richard Zane, so shout out to him. Last night's attendance at Bluebell was 7,111 people. And the season total through 32 games is 197,244, which is an average of 6,163 people per game. And the capacity is 6,100. So that is an average of 101% per game.
Sounds to me
really
like
impressive.
they should expand the stadium.
I don't know. Should they?
Yeah, I mean, if it's me, I'd throw like $80 million.
At some point, in the next year, 2, 3,
2025 or something
years,
like that.
12 years.
Get ready for 2026.
Yeah. So at some point.
So just piggybacking off of what y'all have talked about, Aggie baseball run-rolling Rice last night. Just a really brutal 6th inning for the Rice pitching staff. Overall, not a great night for them, but that 6th inning was tough to watch even for an Aggie fan. Aggies finished non-conference with a perfect 25-0 and a midweek record of 13-0, which we've talked about, something that's only been done twice in program history. So congratulations to the Aggie baseball team on that victory. SEC softball tournament kicked off last night, and A&M plays their first game tomorrow night at 7 p.m. facing the winner of South Carolina and Mississippi State, which they swept South Carolina on the regular season and took 2 out of 3 from Mississippi State on the road. So hopefully they can pick up a win there, and they are looking to bring home their first SEC championship. They've never won the tournament title, so good luck to them.
That's in Auburn, Alabama, is that right?
It's in Auburn, yes. I know it rotates every year. I don't know where it is next year, but I know right now it's being played in Auburn. And speaking of softball, their outfielder Paige Lott was named to the SEC Community Service Team, and I was reading a lot about what all she's done at A&M, just been super involved in her community, and really, really impressive stuff she's got to her name there. And track and field heads to the SEC Outdoor Championships in Florida. And I was also reading about track and field. They've just got way too many to even name, but a lot of their individual runners hold conference leader. They are conference leaders, and then some are national leaders. And they've just been nationally recognized across the country this year. The men currently ranked 2nd and have remained in the top 3 nationally all season, and the women are 4th and have been ranked in the top 10 all year. So just really impressive stuff they've got going on over there in track and field.
We will have Coach Henry on speakerphone, believe it or not, later on today here on the program. So we'll talk to Coach Henry, Coach Ford. It'll be a packed 9 o'clock hour. Your buddy Johnny Harris will join us as well. Can you, Callie, do one last text message for us, please? Can you give us Wendy's little thoughts right here? Because it's a good reminder.
It says, FYI, it takes 5 wins to get to Omaha without a loss, which, if I remember correctly, we did that in 2022. And I also was going to point out that regardless of what happens the rest of the season, I think we've got at least a minimum of 10 games, including, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and then you have 2 in the SEC tournament, regardless of how you play. And then we're going to be in a regional somewhere, like Schloss said. So we've got at least 2 there. So 10 games for Jace Lavalette to maybe hit
10 home runs.
10 home runs. Maybe more games. Hopefully more games. Hopefully 40, a lot more.
40 at bats, at least. At least.
I think a home run a game is doable.
But for that guy,
for sure.
Again, just make contact, and it's a good chance it's going out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's hit a break here. When we come back, we're going to hear from Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly.
Let me go ahead and tell you, before we get there, here's my little tease.
Is he going to have a Southern accent?
He doesn't. He just got his regular Brian Kelly accent. Right. Here's my tease for Brian Kelly. While I may agree with him, I don't think he's being honest, and I don't think you say it. That's what I'm going to say right now.
Okay.
All right? That's my thoughts on it. Right now, let's talk about career opportunities at the Association of Former Students. I know you want to move back here, those of you listening in Dallas and big cities, Houston. Maybe you're not living too far away in Marlin, potentially. You want to get to College Station, or you want to get to Bryan. Well, you need to go work. Go ahead.
Marlin.
I don't know. I was thinking of Carson.
I know. All the towns that come up with, you come up
Marlin,
with Marlin.
Huntsville. A-Leaf, Texas, Sugarland, whatever. If you want to move here like I did, you should reach out to the Association of Former Students. They're not going to relocate you, but you can get a job here and live in the area, work in the area. They've got openings all over, fundraising, former student programs, marketing. They are the premier alumni association serving that organization that's been in support of the Aggie Network for such a long part. The association plays a part in every Aggie story from Howdy to here, and they've been doing that because they love doing that. Don't miss out opportunities to help out with Howdy Socials, Aggie Ring Day, class reunions, Aggie Muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies the Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service, all in support of that Aggie Network. If you're interested in a job with the association or sharing with somebody who would be a great fit, visit tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It is the Association of Former Students. TexAgs Radio, presented by... I love when I do this to you.
David Gardner Insurance. I mean, Jewelers. I mean,
he could probably have an insurance company.
Well, I bet you a lot of those jewels are so, nice that you better insure them.
You better insure them. Yeah, David Gardner's Jewelers.
Jewelers.
in the
Rollo Insurance
studio. They do really good insurance, by the way.
I wonder if they could insure your David Gardner jewels.
I mean, I can connect the two, if not.
Probably.
And it is the Go Hour.
Go Hour.
Yeah.
CC Creations.
Yeah, we're presented by them. Yeah. I didn't know that. Thank you very much for the information. It's segment number 2 here. Let's talk a little Brian Kelly. As I said, we're going to listen to his soundbite. Okay. And but before we do that, I wish this were the case, what he's saying. I don't think he's being truthful. I think maybe they're running out of money. Is basically what I'm saying. All right, so let's listen. And look, what do I know? Jacques Doucette from WAFP with the interview with Brian Kelly yesterday, and they asked him where he is in terms of recruiting the defensive line.
Well, I think I made it pretty clear in a number of the press conferences that I had that we were in the market in recruiting in the transfer portal looking for defensive linemen. It hasn't fared very well, quite frankly, because we're selling something a little bit differently, and that is we want to recruit. We want to engage, build relationships. We want to develop, retain, and have success. We're not in the market of buying players, and unfortunately, right now, that's what some guys are looking for. They want to be bought. And look, I understand NIL is part of this, and we have an incredible collective. We have very, very generous opportunities around the greater Baton Rouge area for NIL opportunities. So they are here, but we're not going to go out and buy players. That's not what this is about. This was never about that. We will develop you. We will get you ready for the next step, as we did with Jaden Daniels, as we did with Malik Neighbors, as we did with Brian Thomas. We developed 3 defensive linemen that all got drafted this year, and we'll do that again. But if you're just looking to get paid, you're looking in the wrong place. If you like all the things that we do here in developing our players, bringing you into a championship program, playing in front of the best fan base in America, playing for championships, and having an opportunity for NIL, you should be a Tiger. But if you just want to get paid, this is not the place for you.
I don't buy that. I don't. But I like the spirit of what he's saying, right? I wish it were that way. But if you don't evolve in this current climate of college football, you will die, okay? But I don't think it's that, because I think they spent NIL on Jaden Daniels. I think they spent NIL on offensive players. What he is saying is we're not prioritizing defensive line when it comes to NIL. That's how I hear it, OB.
All I heard was we're not buying players. And
that's
the
not
name
true.
Harvey Williams just kept flashing through my mind. They were NIL before NIL was cool or legal. Our Lady of the Lake, Fidel Alexander. I mean, I can go on and on. It tells me that, they wanted Walter Nolan and he went to Ole Miss. So they got outbid. What's funny to me is we're not buying players. We got NIL. You come here, you're going to get NIL. But we're not buying players. What? Didn't you just contradict yourself?
Yep.
Which, by the way, I have no problem with that. But just say what you mean. You say, look, and it sounds great. If your only motivation to come play for us, and everybody should say this.
Yep.
If your only motivation to play for us is to get paid, go somewhere else. Because, you're going to get paid, but your motivation needs to be to play football to win a championship.
And I think he was trying to say that, but then he added, we're not buying players, and it went back to we're not doing well on the defensive line recruiting. To me, every program's got a budget, right? Whatever that budget is. And I think they're not saving some of that money in their budget, OB. If LSU has $10 million to spend on NIL, okay, I don't think they're going to, you know what? I don't want to pay these players on the defensive line, so we're just going to save these $5 million here and earmark it for philanthropy later. I don't believe that's how it works.
Maybe they got outbid for some guys that they wanted, and they just feel like the guys that are left aren't worth what they have. Who knows? But I agree with what he finally got to. If your only motivation is to get paid, move on. Go somewhere else.
I do think
and be a problem for them.
Some old school coaches, I really do, like Brian Kelly, by the way, I believe, do think that, right? Like, I don't want these players. But exactly. But you are, if you're playing if you're playing the game, you're playing the game, right? Like, I don't think Jaden Daniels didn't get paid a lot of money for NIL. Now, did he pick LSU because it was the right opportunity for him? I hope so, right? Seems like it'd be a good kid. It was a good system for him. They have done a good job getting those players to the NFL. All fair. But I do think you have this budget, and if you didn't outbid another program, well, that's on the budget.
I like to think that if I had been a great athlete, a great football player, I like to think that, if someone was offering me hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm probably going to go there. But I'd like to think once I got there, I'm still there to compete, to win, because I like to compete, because I like to play football, because I want to build I want to win championships, and I want to enhance my career and have a professional career. I would like to think that's why I'm doing it. But I do believe that there are some players out there, and some have been here, that the only reason they're playing is to get paid now, and then they don't put in as much work that it takes to get the big paycheck in the NFL.
Let's be honest. If you are being recruited by an SEC school, right, especially at one of these desired positions, NIL is going to be pretty good wherever you go, right?
Yeah.
And if it becomes the exact dollar amount over the opportunity, over the culture, over the relationships, to me, like as a parent, my kids are not going to get NIL for playing soccer, but as a parent, my stance would be, where are you going to be happy? What do you think about the teammates? What do people say about the position coach? What's your life going to be like? What about your major? Like the things that I want my kid to go to college for. Those are questions I'm going to be asking if I were in that position. If you are only like, hey, this school's paying me $1.2 million, this school's going to pay me $1.1, I'm going to the $1.2. But I like the coach better at the $1.1. If you're making the choice based on that, that's where I have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But you better play the game, because it's not the old days. It's not. It's a different world of college sports.
Right. And plus, if you don't play it, if they pay and then you don't play well, they're going to stop paying.
Yeah.
It's like, then go, because you're not, because we can earmark that money to go somewhere else for somebody who is playing.
To me, these programs in the SEC and Callie, you were trying to find some numbers, right, on NIL. Were you able to find any?
Yeah. So they have a projected NIL collective fund by NCAA schools, and LSU is ranked third with their funding estimate is $20 million for their collective.
But they're not going to buy players. No.
And they do have, I looked at it by player, and their quarterback, according to On3, is currently making over $1 million.
Grant Nussmeier?
Yes.
Who's on some list?
Garrett Nussmeier.
Garrett, sorry. Who's on some list for the Heisman.
Yeah. And then they have 4 other players in the top 100 of football players ranked in receiving. They haven't disclosed any of their numbers, but I think Connor Wigman is like not even in the top 50.
So where's the A&M on that list?
A&M on the projected list is
so.
1, 2, 3, 5, 5th.
Okay.
17 million. So
in the game.
Now, is that for their athletics or for football?
I think it's just overall athletics.
Okay.
Football.
Yeah, football.
Athletics, but football. All right, we'll hit a break. I see some of your comments there on the YouTube page and on the text line and TexAgs.com. We'll get to those here in a moment. Right now, we're talking Heritage Films. That is a company that makes documentary films about families, about family business, family ranches. They'll tell your story, they'll tell your family's story, and they'll do it better than everybody else. We're talking 2-hour documentary films that they do with a lot of TLC, a lot of tender love and care. They want to tell your story. They want you to be able to share your story. They want that story to stay around forever, right? Generation after generation, telling your dad's story, your family business story, whatever it may be. And there's a lot of different things you can do. You can do it with a bunch of buddies. Class of 84 from A&M. You guys want to celebrate. You guys are good friends. You want to tell your story about your time at A&M. You can do that with Heritage Films. You want to tell your grandfather's story about how he moved to the United States, how he started his family empire and whatnot. You can do that with Heritage Films. 2-hour documentaries done the right way. There's also the Year Flicks, 20-minute Q&A videos reserved for the youngers out there where you can tell their story, quick, fun fashion, where you can get into some of the cool things about your kid, like what they're into now, what they were into, their friends, their movies, whatever they're into, right? You can do that with Chance and his team. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com. 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. We're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. By the way, I wanted to kind of go through, On3 has their NIL 100, the top athletes out there. Number one on the list, believe it or not, Shadur Sanders. And his NIL valuation is $4.6 million.
I wonder if his coach had anything to do with that.
Livy Dunn, number 2 at 3.9. LSU, by the way. Just make sure everybody knows that. Travis Hunter, number 4, also a Colorado guy.
Are these guys... This is all money paid through NIL to them.
This is according to On3's
So LSU's paying $3.9 million in NIL to a gymnast?
I bet you that is probably more the real marketing than it is.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. This is just all combined.
Okay. That's what they're making in NIL, not necessarily from the university.
Right,
gotcha,
correct.
Gotcha.
Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers are 5th and 6th on the list. Arch is at $2.4 million. Quinn is at $1.9 million. Jalen Milroe, according to On3, $1.6 million. Let's see. I'm going to keep going until I get to an A&M player, okay? Actually, I don't know. Nico Lamaleva, 1.3 million. Evan Stewart, by the way, at Oregon, 1.3 million, according to this. Let's see. Shiloh Sanders, 1.1 million. Garrett Nussmeier, 1.1 million. Cam Ward at Miami, 1.1 million. So my point is, these schools are paying, and some of the schools that are talking about not, you're in the game. At least your school's in the game somehow, shape, or form. So there you go. And A&M, I think, is spread out more evanly throughout the program. DJ Lagway, 41st with 79,000.
Wasn't Evan Stewart already before he got here making money through his whatever?
Yeah.
So he had some kind of hustle going.
Nick Scorton on here. So look, schools are paying, and that's just and if you do not embrace it, and if you act like you're not embracing it, players are going to look the other way. It's the bottom line.
Yeah, but you're like Olivia Dunn. I guarantee you, almost all of her money's not coming from LSU.
100%. It's coming from her Instagram account,
right?
From
and that's
real
what was
marketing.
going on with Evan Stewart, I believe.
Right, exactly. Let's get into some A&M projections or betting odds for them. DraftKings released their updated betting lines for 7 of A&M's 12 games. Okay. Some of the games not on here. The game against McNeese, Bowling Green, Mississippi State, South Carolina. Okay, those games are not on here. New Mexico State. Would you think A&M is favored or not favored against Notre Dame according to DraftKings?
My off the top of my head, I'd say they're probably not favored. But the more I think about it, we talked about it yesterday. They're very similar in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And I know Notre Dame had a better record last year, but they also had an easier schedule because they're not in the SEC. They're playing ACC. A lot of the same issues is what I'm getting at. And A&M being at home, I guess I'd still take – I would guess that I'd still think that Notre Dame is favored, but if they are, it's going to be like probably less than 3.
Well, this is the game we're going to play. I'm going to keep doing these games until A&M is not favored. Okay? So maybe it ends right here. Maybe it ends with Notre Dame. A&M, according to DraftKings, as of today, favored by 2 points.
Okay.
Texas A&M at Florida. Maybe the game ends here. What do you think? You think they're favored or not favored?
I think A&M's probably favored against Florida, probably by 4.
Exactly correct.
Really?
Favored by 4. Okay, we're going to keep playing the game until...
I'm Olin the Greek.
Olin the Greek until the game ends. Okay? Week 5, A&M versus Arkansas. Neutral site.
Oh, A&M's favored.
By how much as of today?
7.
11.5.
11.5. Wow.
Okay, we're going to keep playing the game.
Let's play the game.
We've at least got one more game to talk about in this. A&M hosting Missouri. Does the game end here?
A&M by 1.
A&M by 4.
Because everybody looks at
Missouri.
The offensive prowess of Missouri. Yeah. They got to play the defensive side too.
They do.
And they weren't good on defense last year, and they lost some high draft picks on defense, plus their defensive coordinator.
So right now, every game that I've said, A&M is favored. How long would this game last? We only got a couple more that are going to be on here.
It's probably going to be LSU is probably when they're not going to be favored.
That's the next game on the list. Does the game end here? LSU, Saturday, October the 26th. Last time these two teams met, LSU won 42-30. Betting line in this one is?
LSU by 2.
No, I'm sorry, OB.
It's A&M?
It's A&M by 3, according to DraftKings.
Yeah, I know it's going to be
I feel like we're going to go undefeated on the year so far. This feels great. I love DraftKings. I'm a DraftKinger.
Well, all right. Yeah, DraftKing Kong.
Week 12, Texas A&M at Auburn. Well, maybe the game ends here.
I don't think so. It's still Peyton Thorne. I know A&M hadn't been good at Auburn sometimes, but I'm still going to take I would suspect that A&M is favored by 5 over Auburn, even in Auburn.
A&M favored by 3.5.
3.5.
Last game of the year, Week 13, Texas A&M versus Texas. That game is on Saturday, November the 30th. The last time these two teams, I'm not going to talk about that game. All right.
They're going to pick Texas probably by 3.5.
4. Texas by 4. I think that's fair as of today.
As of today, yeah.
This is
even though Texas, like Missouri, has got some serious – I think they're going to have some serious issues on defense.
They picked up a lot of dudes, though.
Their group of receivers are not going to be as good as the ones they had last year.
So I'm going to be very honest with you.
Got a good line, though.
Shocked that DraftKings would pick A&M in all those games.
I hope they're right.
Like, when we get closer to the game, I think A&M Notre Dame will be a pick 'em.
Okay, and then a pick 'em you typically give the edge to the home team.
When they go to Florida, they haven't won in forever on the road.
Yeah,
I still think A&M would be favored in that game. I still think so. Depending on what happens.
Yeah, because until I see something in Florida, because there's nothing that I've looked at Florida that makes me think that they're going to be much better than the train wreck they were last year.
And then the Arkansas game, I think we all – now, double digits, do we really think it's going to be a double-digit line when we get closer to that game? I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
Missouri, I was a little surprised by that one as of today.
Well, again –
I know what your reasons for it, but I was a little surprised by that one.
Missouri's going to lose a lot of games where they score in the 30s, but their opponents are in the 40s.
LSU, I was surprised.
I'm a little surprised with that, but same deal.
I'm not. Well, let me say this: I'm not surprised because I don't think LSU is going to be as good as the national media has made it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why you would.
But because the national media has, I thought that would have an effect on Vegas.
First of all, that was a pretty competitive game in Baton Rouge last year with 2 first-round draft choices playing offensive line. Playing receiver and the
number 3 pick, number 2 pick,
the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. So you're going to move it to A&M. Now, did A&M lose some guys? Yeah, they lost some really good ones.
Yep.
But defense was a travesty for LSU. Why is it going to be better? And why is their offense going to be as good without those 3 guys? I know they got really good offensive tackles.
They lost their offensive coordinator too.
But yeah, they have really good offensive tackles at LSU, really good ones. But and they're always going to have capable guys. But if you're good, that's fine. But the guys you had were great.
By the way, and this is all hypothetical, right? If Vegas were to be correct or if DraftKings were to be correct as of today, and you get to that last game versus Texas, and A&M is undefeated in that world, which I'm not predicting. Just make sure everybody understands. I'm not predicting that. But under this scenario,
right,
A&M would be favored to beat Texas in that scenario. That would
probably
at home.
At home, and you're 11-0, and Texas will not be 11-0. A&M won't be either, but
yeah, A&M won't either. But I'm just saying, in that scenario, I wonder what. And I haven't looked it up. What DraftKings would say about Georgia visiting Texas. Texas favored by 1.
I would suspect that they'll take Georgia, and that Georgia will be favored.
Okay.
So under that scenario, my birthday is on a Saturday this year, December 7th. Oh. I would suspect that would be.
We'll be in Atlanta
for my birthday.
Bro.
To watch A&M versus Georgia for the SEC championship.
Bro.
What a birthday present that would be.
Give me a bro back.
Bro.
No, but do it like.
Bro back.
We're going to hit a break here. When we come back on TexAgs Radio.
Mountain.
Keith Ledger, really good actor. One of the best.
You know what? There's some roles that I just couldn't take, no matter how good.
The Joker? I think you could play the Joker.
The Joker.
Rollo Insurance time. The official insurance provider of TexAgs Radio. The difference is absolutely real. It is spectacular, by the way. Rollo Insurance, an independent insurance company built around educating you on what you're paying for, doing the shopping for you so that you can accomplish all of your insurance goals. When you are in the process of adding your kids to your insurance, when you are looking at buying a new vehicle just for the family, and you have all these questions, let Rollo Insurance help you. They're right here in College Station. They will take care of you every step of the way. We call Morgan for everything. Sometimes we even have them do some of the house chores because that's what they do at Rollo Insurance. They're local. They care about this community. They're at all the A&M athletic events. They're at everything. Like Jason is friends with everybody in town because he loves College Station. He loves A&M. He loves being around here. Their headquarters, as I mentioned, on Highway 653 offices in the great state of Texas, but they can write any form of insurance to anyone in Texas and around Texas as well. They got several other states. The phone number, 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com, 888-44-ROLLO, or rolloinsurance.com. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Ag Engineering 12 on the TexAgs chat, just so we can kind of sum up this On3 evaluation. On3's proprietary algorithm calculates an athlete's roster value and NIL by using dynamic data points targeting 4 primary categories: performance, influence, exposure, deal data. A lot of people are saying these are just projections based on some fake kind of information that's out there. But then, Callie, you said you Googled Arch Manning's worth, and it was actually more in real life. Is that right?
Yeah, it says his total NIL deals lined up at $3.2 million. So.
And that said what, 1.4, 1.6, something like that?
It was, or maybe, yeah.
So bottom line is, I think A&M is playing the NIL game, as I think Texas is playing the NIL game, as is LSU, and pretty much all the major teams in the SEC.
Yeah, of course they are.
Yep.
And you need to be, and you need to do it better than everybody else.
No doubt about it. Let's go back to Callie Gardner. They're at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Callie, what else?
Are you texts or?
I guess a lot of the texts were about that, right?
Yeah, we had a lot of people in the YouTube chat too. They were looking for the list of what we originally talked about, and that was just the NIL and NCAA.com that had the projected NIL collective fund, and then everything else was on 3 evaluations, which we've discussed is a projection clearly. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's all based on very factual things that they're rating things on. So I don't know.
I wonder how they come up with the figure.
They got some little formula that they use. Here's a question from John, and you can answer. This is for OB. What TexAgs personality does Big Game Hunter by Buck Owens best describe? This is John in Grand Junction asking that.
Wait. Say that again.
So, what TexAgs personality does Big Game Hunter, the song by Buck Owens?
Oh, Buck Owens. Got a tiger by the tail. And what?
What personality does Big Game Hunter?
Big Game Hunter. Probably Lucci.
Oh, okay, Billy Lucci?
Probably.
Okay.
He's a big game hunter.
He is a big game hunter, isn't he?
Every weekend. I can bet you are a big game hunter, but now you probably don't hunt.
Never was a big game hunter, OB. I've been reading the Bible every Saturday and Sunday night of my youth. Well, I wanted to, at least.
I
prayed to the porcelain god.
I was a big game hunter. I just never,
got
to kill. I was like the Elmer Fudd of big game hunters.
Hey, you know that I've never gone hunting before, but this is the year it happens.
Really?
Where real
are you
hunting.
Gonna hunt?
Yeah, I'm gonna do real hunting. I got some options.
You gonna go with
Callie
McGee
might know somebody who might take me, and a couple other friends have offered to take me. So that's happening.
Go with McGee and shoot pigs? Hogs?
Or was it snipe hunting? I'm gonna go snipe
Don't
hunting.
do that.
We'll go snipe hunting with McGee and Swopey.
Took a few girlfriends snipe hunting back in White Oak a long time ago. We got a lot of snipes.
Did you?
We got the limit. The snipe limit.
The snipe limit. OB, thank you, buddy. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Juan Haris, John Harris, the professor. That and more is TexAgs. Hey, everybody. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio, waiting on John Harris to join us here on the program. I want to remind you guys for preseason kickoff registration, you can do it right now by going to texags.com/kickoff to register to go to the best event. Coach Elko's going to be there. Coach Schloss is going to be there. Buzz is going to be there. A lot of the coaches will be in attendance as well. It'll be a great, great time. Hopefully you all can make it. Every year we've done it. That I've been a part of it, I've just had such a wonderful time, and it just gets you ready for the fall season. Again, that is texags.com/kickoff. Let's go to the hotline. We're joined by my buddy John Harris, the professor. Johnny, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, David. Oh, the kickoff is great. I've done that event a few times. I love coming up for that, but haven't been able to do the training camp and all that kind of stuff the last few years. But I love going up there and presenting, so it's good. It's always good. So if you're out there and you're wondering whether you should go or not, TexAgs folks, go. It's a blast. It's really cool. Very informative. Always fun. Some funny moments, too. I don't know about the grub this year, but the grub has always been really good the last how many ever years I've been there. So I love that event. If I could go, I'd go. If I needed to present, I'd present. But it's a great event, so everybody make sure you sign up. TexAgs.com. Go get the kickoff info. And I didn't even know we were talking about that. I'm just telling you straight from jump, just telling you.
Well, you recognize the real deal here, Johnny, and I'm going to ask you this. Was JJ just being nice when asked about, I told DeMeco I'll come back if he needs me, or do you really think there's a part of him that's like, I can do this again?
David, I'll ask you this. Have you ever done something in your life and you stopped it because you thought you should, or you thought you were too old, or, you thought, I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to stop this, or, I just had family. This is what I'm supposed to do. Right. Versus deep down in your heart, you're like, I should have done that. I should have kept going. That's where he is in his life right now. I think he absolutely would like to come back and play. I think that when you compete at that level and you compete how hard JJ does compete, I think you have that desire to continue to do it. I think he absolutely would love to come back to play football in kind of the way that JJ would like to do it. And that'll make things pretty interesting, to be honest. So we'll see. But I don't think he's not playing around. I mean, I don't think he would bring it up. I don't think he would joke about it. But I think he's like a lot of great athletes. They can't give it up. Tom Brady talked about it this summer. They can't give it up. And I get it. I get it. I remember, luckily my first year out of, after playing football, and I wasn't very good, but my first year after not playing football, when I had been doing it every single fall for how many ever years, and all of a sudden I'm not putting the gear on. At least I was coaching. So at least that, but I missed it. My God, I missed it. And I hated two-a-days. 2-a-days back in the 80s, 90s were awful. They were so bad, but I'm like, man, I'd go back to two-a-days, just put the gear back on and play the game again. So he played it 12 years into the NFL. He was lauded. He's loved in this town. So I think where it gets a little bit, oh boy, is who does the decision lie with now? He said, well, DeMeco calls me. Well, now if DeMeco doesn't call him, is DeMeco the bad guy? Like, I don't know. I think it's a lot more complex, David, but we'll see. I love JJ. I think I speak for a lot of people. We love JJ. My hesitation is how many retired players other than Jordan and then a little bit of Joe Flacco last year, and the expiration date was about 6 games for Flacco before he expired against us in the playoffs. How many retirees have come back to the game after a year plus and been able to kind of pick up right where they were, or maybe not even pick up right where they were, find kind of a niche where they can be successful? Jordan was the only one, but Jordan left way before his prime. JJ's 35. So I don't know, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to talk about because I never want to say never, and I never want to say no to JJ Watt, but I think this football team is kind of cruising along on its own and can be okay on its own. And I just don't know what the addition of JJ does to the whole apple cart. I don't know. It's complicated, man, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. And as long as they keep talking about it, it'll be content for Houston radio, to be content for a lot of people. But I don't know. I feel like Scrooge in some sense. I just don't know it's the right thing to do at this point.
When you are a Hall of Famer, and JJ's a Hall of Famer, when you're used to being the best, and the last couple of years of your career obviously weren't what we remembered. Like, to me, like, how do you come back, put in the grind when you can't be JJ Watt? Like, you could be potentially good in certain scenarios, right? I mean, I'm sure he could still rush the quarterback, but he wouldn't be the JJ that we remember. He'd just be a guy on the team that has a huge name.
Well, to maximize, let's just say it happens. To maximize what you have on his team, JJ would have to play inside. And that was never something he wanted to do. JJ always wanted to be on the outside. Like, JJ would be in the huddle. They'd break the huddle, and he'd sprint to an outside position. Like, he'd sprint to where he wanted to go. And that's not something he could do. And, back in 2019, I think it was maybe a great example of this, both good and bad. He played the Bills in the playoffs, and JJ was coming back from the torn pec, and there was all this talk about JJ coming back. That was 5 years ago, and JJ still had some semblance of his fastball. And so in that game against the Bills, he has a sack that turns the game around. And then he had a pressure or something later in the game that helped. And so he was kind of in the role then, what he probably would be doing now. So against the Bills, it lit this building up. Mm-hmm. It's 13-0. They're about to go score again. We're done. He forces a field goal. It's now 16-0. We're still alive because it's only 2 scores. And that sack got everybody going. But then we played the Chiefs next week. And every defensive player was absent. Everyone. Like, that was the second week. And it was against a team you really had to beat. And that was 5 years ago. So I worry about, like, from 1 week to the next, how would somebody that has been J.J. Watt deal with maybe not being quite J.J. Watt? A guy that has been, the 35-point-a-game scorer turning into a guy that, is going to settle for 6 points and 15 rebounds. Go from being, Michael Jordan to Dennis Rodman in some respects. I don't know. I don't know how the ego handles that. I don't know. And what the money and how you figure out the money on that, I think would be really difficult. I don't know. I just think there's a lot of hurdles that people don't want to look at or don't want to even think about. They just want to think about him coming back and think about JJ Watt being added to this group. And it's like, yeah, but that's not the JJ Watt that you guys are going to remember. So I don't know. I think it gets kind of tricky in some sense.
John Harris, footballtakeover.com, Texans sideline reporter. Johnny, I know you wrote recently about quarterbacks for next year's draft. When you look at the SEC in general, who are some potential guys that could be first-rounders?
Well, I feel like this quarterback class isn't it's not like last year's. Like last year's, when I sat down to do this exercise, I felt pretty confident. Now, there were also some quarterbacks that ended up going back to school that just didn't develop kind of the way that I thought they were going to. And it could be the case for this one too. But I had 3 quarterbacks. I have 2 quarterbacks with first-round grades. And that's Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, and he's kind of a tangled web. And thank God we have a quarterback because I don't even want to get into that discussion, really. There are just a lot of things that are going to make Shedeur Sanders very polarizing for many, many reasons. And then Carson Beck from Georgia. I just think Carson is probably the more classic pocket-type quarterback, but he's a better athlete than people think. I remember seeing him at Mandarin High School in Jacksonville, because obviously my ties to Jacksonville, and I was like, well, he moves pretty well. Like, he can run when he needs to. He just doesn't. And that's okay. I can live with that. CJ is kind of the same way here in Houston. But after that, I came up like 4 different tiers, and I put Connor in one of those tiers. Like, look, if everything breaks right for Connor, first of all, let's stay healthy. Let's do that. I think Connor's game has to speed up a little bit. I think he's got to speed up his decision-making a little bit. But if things start to break right for him, then Connor's absolutely going to have his name in the mix. There's no question. Because if things break right for him and he speeds it up and he's starting to be productive, they have wins against some quality opponents, which you're going to face in the SEC, his name is going to be mentioned. And it's going to be a discussion point as long as he is taking those steps to improve from where he left off last year, which I think was the Miami game. I think that's what it was. If he makes those strides, Connor absolutely is going to be the conversation. Another guy I put in the conversation, not because I think he's this tremendous thrower. I don't think he's a tremendous runner. But I think Brady Cook from Missouri becomes kind of interesting because he's got a little bit of everything. You know, he's kind of a poor man's J.J. McCarthy in some sense. He's got really good speed. He runs it, well. He doesn't throw it tremendously, but he throws it pretty well. So you put all that together and you look at this past draft, like Bo Nix and Michael Penix. So maybe you can I made a case for Penix at the back of the first round. There's no way Bo Nix should have gone in the first round. None whatsoever. I mean, that's who Brady Cook can absolutely be a couple of years younger. Like Bo Nix is 24. So, a guy like Brady Cook at Missouri, Connor absolutely is in that mix. Carson Beck, I think, is the best quarterback in the conference. I think he's the best quarterback and pro prospect, I should say, in the country. The other ones, Quinn Ewers is one from Texas that I just can't get a handle on, David. I can't. There's some games you watch him and go, that's him. That's the highest rated, TexAgs recruit there's ever been. I don't know if y'all had him rated that high. I don't know. But there are a lot of people that had him rated as the highest prospect they've ever seen. And then you watch him and you're like, man, he can look so good for a short amount of time. And then he can look so bad for a short amount of time. And then it just flops back and forth. So I don't know. I have a hard time. I can't give him a first round grade. So I put him in basically gave him a second round grade, watched him so much. And I was like, but with improvement and just continued progress, he definitely can get himself in the first round, considering how many teams will end up needing quarterbacks next year. So, and I, of course, I mentioned Ewers at the end because I'm like, oh yeah, Texas and the SEC. Oh crap, that's right. So yeah, I think the SEC can have some pretty good ballers. I think some are going to be Nussmeier at LSU. He's going to be very interesting to watch because he's got supreme physical talent, but now he's a full-time starter. So okay, now the pressure week in, week out. You're not just getting a spot start. You're not just selling out for that one game. You got to do it week in and week out in a really tough conference. And I'm not convinced that LSU is going to be as good as it's been, to be honest. And listening to Brian Kelly yesterday, it sounds like he's not paying for it to be any better than it was. So we'll see how that goes. But those are probably the guys that I would say, and I'm sure I'm just ripping them off the top of my head. So I'm sure there's probably a couple that I've missed. But those would be the ones that probably come to mind more than most.
John, what did you think about his comments yesterday, Brian Kelly's, were, to me, it just seemed weird because I know they're spending money on NIL. I love the spirit of what he says. Hey, we don't want you to come here just for the money, right, but we're striking out on defensive linemen. It just seems like maybe they're not budgeting for defensive line as opposed to maybe some other positions that they value.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. It's interesting. I read an article yesterday, David. It was on Football Scoop, and Football Scoop sent a media. There was two media members at this meeting. There was a conference or something. I think it was up in Dallas. It was a conference, and they had like 5 director of football operations from throughout college football. A couple of people. I think it was a panel of about 8 or 9 people, and they were talking about this. About this NIL stuff. And one of the director of football ops guys who was with a group of 5 schools said that his coach said, when all this NIL stuff started, he said, if they come in and ask for money, we're not recruiting them. And I read that line. I went, oh boy. Then I read the next line. He said, yeah, that lasted 6 months. Because everybody's coming in asking what the money situation is. They don't give 2 damns about what the facilities are or whatever. They want to know what's the money, what's the situation, and then, okay, playing time, NFL, that kind of stuff come after that. But according to these guys, it's the first question, it's the only question that gets asked. And so that's the world that the college football coaches are living in. So you better have a plan for it. And if your plan is, nah, we're just not going to recruit those guys that want money. Well, welcome to mediocrity in college football, because that's where you'll be. Now, you don't have to do it like a Big Ten coach I know about who apparently was giving out offers back in September to players. And it was interesting reading this article because there were some coaches saying, we don't allow our guys to do the handshake line anymore because coaches are tampering with players and all this kind of stuff. It was really eye-opening just to see some of the things that were happening. But there's a way that you can utilize things and do things according to whatever rules there are now, and there really aren't any. So if you want to stick to your standard, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic, but you'll get beat. Look at Clemson. Clemson's a great example. David, Clemson does not take anybody from the transfer portal. No one. So they played Florida State last year. Florida State beats them by 4 in overtime. Florida State had a second-round defensive tackle who came from Western Michigan. They had a first-round defensive end that came from Albany. They had a linebacker who had come from UCF. Their quarterback, Jordan Travis, was transferred from Louisville. Trey Benson, their third round running back, he was a transfer from Oregon. Their offensive line, I think, had a couple of transfers. They had transfers all over the place.
Michigan's, what's his name? The kid from Michigan State that went to Florida State,
Yeah,
Keon
Coleman, wide receiver.
Yep.
Everywhere. Johnny Wilson, their big wide receiver, was from Arizona State. They had, I think of their top 22, they probably had like 12, 13 transfers at a minimum. And Florida State goes and beats Clemson. Now, what if Clemson had just 2 of those players? What if Clemson had Keon Coleman and Braden Fisk? Just 2 that Florida State doesn't get. But Clemson's like, nope, not going to do it. We're not going to take kids out of transfer portal. We're just not going to do it. That's not the way we're going to do things. And what has happened to Clemson? Clemson's a mid football team right now. And I'm not saying that it's got to be that. There's just got to be a happy median you got to find. Like, do you want to compete? If you want to compete, you're going to have to do some things. And I know at Clemson, I know for a fact in 2010, I think it was, I got a call from an agent. And the agent said, hey, what do you think about this guy? And what would you think about this guy at Clemson? And I thought, well, that's interesting. Because is that what the head coach wants? And the agent kind of stopped, paused, and said, I don't know, but it's what he's getting. And after that, Clemson football. So there's got to be some pressure put on Dabo to be able to say, hey, man, you got to get a transfer portal. There's going to be somebody at LSU, I guarantee you heard that interview and was like, whoa. BK, we got to sit down. We got to figure this out. We get your stance. We understand it, but we want to win football games. And if paying this guy, that guy, and that guy $2 million each or whatever, we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll go get you the money. We'll find it for you. We got people in their couch. They got that in their couch cushions. We'll make sure LSU's a winner. So there might be some coaches that are going to have those difficult discussions, or they may not be the coaches there much longer.
John, you got to hit a break here in about a minute, but during our interview, TexAgs gave me the alert that Jacob Bostic has committed to Texas A&M, the wide receiver out of Iowa. Doesn't have any stats recorded there, but that's a position group that, Johnny, that A&M is – they're going to have to hope that the guys that they have brought in, the new ones and also the established, the Mooses, the Noahs, the Jade Walkers, that they can really pick up some of the slack because Anaya Smith isn't coming back. He's in the NFL now.
Yeah, absolutely. He ended up in Philly, which I thought was pretty interesting. I don't know if I think I mentioned that last week about how Aaron Moorhead had been at Pro Day. And I want to say, I think Moorhead had a connection to A&M at some point, David. I could be wrong. I could be thinking it's about somebody different, but it was just interesting seeing him work out. Look, when you look at how many wide receivers have moved in this transfer portal, and I think there are still a few more that are out there, I think that they could have a possibility of go getting. I haven't seen an update on Zachary Franklin. I believe he left Ole Miss. I mean, he had a great career at UTSA. I think there are still some opportunities out there. The guy that I really wanted A&M to get was Deion Burks, who played at Purdue. I thought he would have been a great fit with A&M, but he ended up going to Oklahoma. I think he's going to be a stud at Oklahoma. I wanted A&M to get him. I thought he would have been a great, great fit. So it's going to have to be, I think, more of the growth from the guys. I think Moose has got to take a step forward, and I think that's got to be probably the biggest one. Moose has got to take a step forward, and Noah's got to. They both do. So I think the bigger thing, and and I don't know the roster probably as well as you do, David, but losing Jake Johnson I thought was big, a tight end. And then you're also losing Max on top of it. I just think to give Connor that outlet, to have an athletic tight end, you see teams with those athletic tight ends. Florida State had Jaheim Bell, and he was kind of a tight end running back kind of combination. But, man, they had a different piece in the passing game they could go to. So the wide receiver development A&M is going to be really interesting. I think the offensive line is going to be much better. I just get that feel, just better coaching, better feel. I think it's going to be a better group overall. But wide receiver, that's going to be obviously one that, Connor and those guys are going to have to get on the same page early on and have that thing ready to roll. I think they will. I think they'll get there. There's enough talent, I think, there. But another transfer wouldn't hurt,
Johnny, got to hit a break, man.
I think there's some people at A&M that have some money somewhere, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Appreciate you, brother. Talk to you next week.
All right, man. Love you, bro. See you,
man. John Harris. When we come back, Trisha Ford will be here on TexAgs Radio. Catch up with her before the big SEC tournament. They'll start tomorrow, and we'll talk about that and more on TexAgs. We're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. The SEC tournament about to start for the Aggies tomorrow. They'll play the winner of the Game 5 game between Mississippi State and South Carolina. With that, let's go to the hotline. We're joined by Trisha Ford. And Trisha, I got to tell you, sorry, we were late on the last break, so you had to wait a little bit. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're here in lovely Auburn, Alabama, and getting ready to practice a little bit today.
Well, let's first off, before we get into looking back at Gainesville and looking ahead here at the tournament, just the overall experience for your student athletes to be there and participate where it really matters with the 3 seed and just the whole experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity. It's the first time that we've obviously had the double bye, which has been will be, just a new experience for us. So we'll get to watch some games before we go at it on Thursday. But they do a great job. The SEC does a great job of just making it an environment that's really exciting and full of competition.
Let's look back at Gainesville for a moment and just the rough weekend that it was to build from that and get right back onto the path that you all were on.
Yeah, I mean, we had tough games on both Friday and Saturday. I felt like, we were one pitch, one hit away in both of those games. That environment is tough. It's tough to win. It's, tough to win on the road in the SEC. And, it just, what my message to the team was, is that's how close we are. We're, one pitch, we're one hit kind of away in those games. And so we just got to figure out how to get over that hump. But the good news is our season's not over, right? We get to regroup. We get to come out and compete again. And, what feels is like a regional, super regional again. So it's a little warm up before hopefully, we have more games at Davis.
Well, I know one thing that's important to you is to make sure that the Gainesville experience doesn't zap the energy moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Our game is full of life lessons, right? And just it's hard. And so, I think we can all sit back and we have and kind of look at some of the little things that, maybe cost us. But here's the thing. We've put together a really good season. We've put together a really good, just plan of like how we're going to be successful. And I think we've been very successful at a high rate. So you have to learn from Florida. You have to learn, why we didn't kind of come through. And then you got to move on from it and get better.
Can you talk about just the challenges of playing from behind? Obviously, you don't want to play from behind. You always want to play with the lead, but that is part of the game. And can you talk a little bit about what it can do to a mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that it can do if you allow it to, but it can kind of put some pressure, especially you start to see our pitchers kind of try to get a little nitpicky with the placement of their pitches, and then that'll, kind of leads to some walks. And that's where you have to really just kind of go back to playing your game. This game is full of ups and downs, but we get opportunities as well in this game. And so understanding how to kind of funnel in the opportunity kind of view versus the pressure view. And so you got to learn. You got to keep moving. And, we're a really good team, and sometimes we just have to kind of remind ourselves of that.
Talking to Trisha Ford here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. You mentioned maybe tinkering with the lineup a little bit to find some rhythm. Just some thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're still tinkering. We're probably going to tinker a little bit more. It's going to go a little bit of matchup and how we think and who we're going to see in the circle on the other side. But again, it's just, you're always evolving. You're always kind of moving little pieces around. I think we have the correct pieces. Now we have to figure out how they fit. And so, and it's going to depend on our plan of attack game-wise, how much the short game's going to, lie in there and how much we're going to kind of get moving on the bases, running, maybe put some hit and runs and button runs and get our base runners moving. So, the good thing is you're in the lineup, right? And so that's what we always talk about. It doesn't really matter where you're at as long as you're in it and you're helping the team win. And so we'll see.
Coach Ford, Tyler provided me some stats for Coco in the last 10 games and just how dynamic and how instrumental she's been for you all.
Yeah, I mean, that kid at any point in time can change a game. Defensively, running the bases, in the batter's box, and she just continues to work. Honestly, she's been in and out just because of her hammy issue. And so it's been a little hard for her to find her rhythm. And then last weekend, she found her rhythm. And what she did, she tries to do too much sometimes, and that's what her and I really talked about, is use the ground. Speed has no off day, and I thought she just did a tremendous job of taking what they gave to her, not trying to do too much, and then just watching her fly around the bases is always, a good day for us. So I think, Coco, again, she's a junior, so she's starting to understand. She knows what this part of the season is like. She knows what she has to do. And so just getting her to get into that mental state and let her do what Coco does.
Let's get back to the double bye and the fact that you know these two teams. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the advantages of having the extra time and the extra research in front of you?
Yeah, I think anytime you have more information, it's good. Our team is very comfortable with them, and if you look at when we've played them previously, we usually do a pretty good job. And so at the end of the day, you're going to still have to show up and execute and win a ball game. But both teams, obviously, we played them in a 3-game series this year. I feel like we hit them pretty well. South Carolina Mississippi State. But both of them have improved. And so the key is for us to come out and play our game, right? Just like we've improved, they've improved, everybody's going to make adjustments. So coming out and just having good energy from the first pitch and all the way to the last pitch. But, we're going to be able to understand what their defense is capable of doing. We've seen all of their arms, just like they've seen all of our arms. So I think it's going to be a fun game, to be honest with you.
Can you explain to me a little bit of the KPI ranking system and I guess how they look at teams, and that's why I think A&M right now is number 12 on that list?
Yeah, so KPI is a little bit different from the RPI. It takes into consideration on the road. It takes into consideration your wins, but it doesn't weigh in your wins as heavy as the RPI does. And so it takes into, like I said, were you on the road, at what time of year, how close the game was, some other factors that I think are a little bit more true than maybe the RPI that's just kind of a numbers game. So I'm hoping that they utilize that at a high rate this year when they're going into that room. I think RPI-wise right now we're at 16, but KPI we're a little bit higher, like you said, at 12. And so, I think it's a better tool. I think you see a lot of sports kind of transitioning to that metric. And so we'll see. We won't know until Selection Sunday, but I do know if we, take care of business, especially on Thursday, and keep moving through this tournament, we will have a really good chance of hosting games at Davis Diamond after.
Yeah, and just the importance of being not only physically fit, but the mentally fit here when the postseason arrives.
Yeah, I think any coach will tell you if you can get to the postseason in a good position and be healthy, both mentally and physically, you've got a good shot. And so I feel like we're in that position right now. We're pretty healthy. Dealing with a couple of banged ups, but nothing major. And so we're in a good position to be able to make a good run here in this postseason. You feel pretty good about where you are heading into the game tomorrow? I do. I feel like we're in a good headspace. I feel like we're excited. We, dealt with kind of how Florida went and flushed it. And, the good news is we're going to be able to keep playing softball. So they understand that if we have a weekend like that again, we're done. And so I think, like I said earlier, you learn from it, you figure out what went wrong and how to kind of address those items, and then you get going for this next go about. But this is the fun part. This is the part of the year that you work all year long to get to this point in time. So we're excited. Good luck, Trisha. We'll be rooting you on from here in College Station. All right. Take care. Have a good week. You too. Trisha Ford there on the hotline. Good luck to the Aggies as they will start tomorrow. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Pat Henry and Saul Luna, his athletic trainer there. We'll talk to them about the SECs, getting ready for all that. Right now, though, I want to talk about our friends at QC Kinetics. I want you guys to have fun out there, right? Like, go do the things that you love to do outdoors. If you like to do things indoors too, like yoga or whatever, like you should be doing what you want to do no matter your age. If you like to go hiking, if you like to go biking, if you like to play on the beach, if you like to go jogging, whatever it may be, you don't want to have joint
joint pain will limit you and make you not want to go out there. So what you need to do is not miss out on summer and reach out to the good people there at QC Kinetics, and they can help use your biologics from your own body to give you life in those achy joints and make you get back to doing what you love to do. If your knees are bothering you, your hips, your back, your shoulders, wherever it may be, regenerative medicine protocols can restore and repair that damaged tissue with no surgery, no steroids, no drugs, no downtime. The future of medicine is actually right now, and that's what QC Kinetics has brought to the Brazos Valley, with tens of thousands of QC Kinetics patients around the country living their best life this year because they made that call. There are medical professionals there that want to help you, and they're under the leadership of Dr. Mitchell Scheinkup, who's an orthopedic surgeon and became the true pioneer of this regenerative medicine. He knew there had to be a better way, and he's done that. Call QC Kinetics right now for your free consultation. Revolutionary treatments are here. All you got to do is call them up, 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That's 979-452-6000. We're back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We are here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's talk a little track and field as the SEC Championships are going to be taking place there in Gainesville starting tomorrow. This interview with Pat Henry is brought to you by the Brazos Running Company, your local Aggie-owned specialty running store where you can save 10% in store when you mention the code TexAgs10. Check out that great location at Century Square. Coach Henry's joining us now with his athletic trainer, Saul Luna, here on the line live from Gainesville. Coach Henry, good morning. How are you? are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful. And Saul, how are you, sir?
Fabulous. How are you, sir?
Great. So let's, Coach Henry, let's start off with you. Just how ready do you feel the men and women are for this big championship coming up?
Well, I really do. I think we are prepared. I think that, we have the opportunity with our sport to look at it a little different than a lot of sports do. And we've talked about this before. Every meet we've had to this point has been, a rehearsal, and the play starts tomorrow. And we'll see how all of the rehearsals have either benefited us or how they have benefited us. And that's the team goal. The goal is everybody have a good day on the same day, and that's been the drive and the force going forward for this group.
Saul, you're there every day. You get to feel it. How ready do they seem physically?
The team is ready to go. We're in great health, and like Coach Henry said, the goal is for everyone to have a great day on the same day. And my staff and I, our pleasure and our privilege is to be able to get them ready, kind of like in a Formula One race situation, right? We keep them tuned up, we got them ready to go, and our athletes are ready to go out there and be their best.
Coach Henry, how did the Penn Relays prepare you guys for this week?
I think a big atmosphere in Philadelphia is a little bit different than anywhere. And when you're running in front of 90,000, it doesn't happen very often for young people at this level. So it's great preparation. It puts a little bit more pressure on you to get something done and to do it right. And so that's a benefit, I believe. Plus there's great competition at Philadelphia for the Penn Relay. So the SEC championship, though, it's the best meet ever, and it's the best meet of the year, including the NCAA championships. It's still the best track meet of the year because you have the SEC schools, and none of them want to lose. Every single one of them wants to win, and it's a team, and it's a team environment. And for track and field, that makes this by far the best meet of the year.
Well, Coach Henry, I want to follow that up with some information out there. 11 men's SEC programs are ranked. 9 of the women's are ranked. That's what you get when you get to the SEC, right? You want to be in that environment. Every meet prepares you for what is perhaps the biggest meet of them all.
That's right. That's exactly right. And when you say I do, I know on the men's side it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is how we're ranked in national rankings. And if you look at the years that have gone by, with the exception of maybe Texas winning a year ago, that might be the first out-of-conference team that's won in 10 years. So the SEC has been tough, and that's what makes it great. Yeah, you want this kind of environment. This is what you want. You want to be able to compete against the best, and hopefully some of ours are the best.
But Coach Henry, do rankings even really matter when you get to this level? Because all the teams in the SEC are good, and you could be the 5th ranked team or you could be the 9th ranked team. It doesn't really matter. You just have to be great on that day.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. That's exactly what this is all about. Because what you did yesterday doesn't count tomorrow. We start tomorrow. It's about what you learned yesterday and how you apply it tomorrow is what counts. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think this group has got some confidence in themselves. I think we've developed that as the season has gone. And, if you get on the track and you do the best you've done all year long, and that's 3rd place, boy, we're going to be extremely pleased with that. And that's the goal.
So we had Kennedy Fontenot in studio last week, and just the incredible season that she's having. Just talk a little bit about working close with her and what you've seen.
Kennedy
Fontenot has a great attitude, and that's really one of the biggest determinants of success, right? Because if you have a great attitude and you come in and you are not prepared to do what you got to do to be successful, right? And to put yourself in that position, she's always even keel. She always has just a great spirit about her, and that actually translates to great health, right? Because when you're in that right mindset, your body is optimized for healing and restoration. So, that young lady, she's special.
Coach Henry,
And I do
go
want
ahead.
David, I do want to say this is not a normal trainer. This is not who this guy is that's with me. This guy is, he's been with me 18 years now, and he is, the way, he's treating people before they're ever hurt. That's the goal. We know you're going to go through some hurts, but if you're seeing him and seeing his staff, we're trying to eliminate all of those kinds of little injuries by seeing him on a regular basis. And he does a tremendous job. His staff does a great job for us. And it's one of the reasons that we have been as successful as we have been is because of his leadership in the training room. And so I'm really glad that he's on here today because I need to say that about this guy in this community. There's a lot of people in this community who know that about Saul Luna, but for me to say it here is important because he's been an integral part of our success.
All right, let's do this. Let's go deeper into that in the next segment. I do want to talk about the partnership and how you all make it work and how you apply it to your student athletes. We'll get into that and more here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Dropping it like it's hot here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. This Trek program spotlight brought to you by Schulte Roofing, an award-winning roofing company that provides industrial, commercial, residential services to Belleville, Brenham, Bryan, College Station, Conroe, Montgomery, Navasota, San Antonio, the Woodlands, and the surrounding counties. Schulte Roofing is home of the Bulletproof Roof Guarantee. Let's go back to the hotline. Saul is with us. Pat is with us. I go first names on the program because these are my friends here, Saul Luna and Pat Henry, coaches. Let's get into it. And so I want to start off with you this segment and just the importance of making sure that you are monitoring everything that these athletes are doing heading into the championships, from the sleep to the nutrition to the hydration. Just kind of take me through how you as a program do that part.
Well, I think that, once again, we've all bought into the vision, Coach Henry's vision of don't let the day get away. And let's everybody have a great day on the same day. So we constantly talk about controlling the controls. So we make sure that our student athletes are educated and reminded of the things that it is that they have to do to set themselves up for success. And here at Texas A&M, we have a great team. Nutritionists, we have sports psychologists, we have, a performance staff. We've got it all. We have sports science. We have the full gamut of resources that our student athletes need. So we, first of all, make sure that they are educated. And secondly, we provide accountability, right? And so my job, and so as an athletic trainer, we wear many hats. Our job is to prevent, treat, and rehabilitate injuries. However, being a member of this staff and being a member of this team, I also have the privilege of helping our athletes perform. And so helping our athletes achieve personal best, helping athletes, set collegiate records, helping athletes win NCAA record, medals, world championship medals, Olympic gold medals. That's just the payoff, But the reward and the true goal is preparing. Prepare. So we're constantly monitoring our student athletes. We're constantly having conversations. We bring them into the athletic training room and we see how they're moving. And we don't want people to come in once they're hurt. We want to see them when they're healthy because we want to figure out what they're supposed to be feeling like. And then when something goes wrong, we can compare them to what they normally feel like, and then we're able to make adjustments. And what we found is if someone does get hurt, they come back pretty quickly, or they don't get hurt at all, and they're able to perform their best.
Coach Henry, how do you guys go back and forth in making sure that you have the information that Saul and his team are getting, and then you can apply it there when it comes to the training sessions?
Well, that is the goal, because we've got 100 athletes, and so everybody's got an issue. I mean, almost everybody at some point has got an issue. So my communication with Saul becomes very important. We communicate daily about issues, who is able to train on this day, who it might be better to have a rest day or a rest couple of days. People get so worried about missing a training day when actually not having the training day lots of times is the benefit more so than having the training day. But athletes don't think that way. That's why there's people like Saul and the communication with me that we gotta force them into taking days off sometimes. But it is about communication. If he and I don't communicate with somebody, then we have a problem, and we don't have many of those problems ever. And so he's easy for me to communicate with, and he comes to my office to talk about things daily, and that's the way we have to work.
Coach Henry, we got about a minute and a half left on the show, just in the hour. Just how do you feel where you are as a team, like heading into it tomorrow? Starting tomorrow, excuse me. Just how do you feel overall the vibe is with the team and how everybody's feeling?
Well, this is a group. First of all, this is a group that doesn't have many seniors, which is issue, but it's also good. We also are the environment going to dictate you have to be it. You have to be it. And so the real athletes step up. This is when the real athletes show up. That is the goal. That's what we're going to find out about this. And that's what makes it fun. That's what this is all about.
Coach Henry, Saul, good luck to you this week. We'll catch up with you guys very soon. Thanks so much for making time. We'll talk to you very soon. Thank you. There it is. Brought to you by Schulte Roofing here on TexAgs Radio. All right, when we come back here on the program, Ryan Brauninger will be in studio. We'll do a little recruiting country. If you got some questions for Bronny, let us know about it. 979-693-1150. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We'll talk some baseball in the next half hour, but we're going to start things off with recruiting country. You all know all about it. Brought to you by Caprock Health System, a faster patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in the Bryan College Station area, the original 24-hour ER in South College Station on William D. Fitch, and the full-service hospital with ER in Bryan on Briarcrest. Online, caprockhealthsystem.com. Ryan Brauninger with us. Hello, Bronny.
Good morning, and it's a good time for me to walk in here, right?
Great
Just
timing.
had a commitment, and yeah, there's actual recruiting stuff to talk about in a typically, or what has traditionally been, a slow time of the calendar for recruiting.
Yeah, I've noticed, though, it hasn't been slow this offseason.
No, and I think a lot of that's it's a combination of what the extended transfer portal window has grown into now, the post-spring practice, post-spring football portal window has turned into, and then also just what, I think the combination of that and Mike Elko being here in his first season, and they're wanting to not give away any ground and not give away any days, weeks, months, or whatever when they have a chance to kind of just keep that ball rolling. And so it started to happen this morning with the transfer portal edition, Jacob Bostic, wide receiver from Iowa. And it's interesting, right, because roster building, talent acquisition, all that stuff has really, and the ebbs and flows of the portal, the ins and outs, it's changed what football recruiting is now. And okay, so this is a kid that's coming in, and the biggest thing that's on this graphic that Nick made, very nicely done, Nick, is the 3 years of eligibility. Okay, so when I first saw this offer go out, obviously, I don't know much about Iowa football, especially the only thing I know about Iowa offensive football is that it's been one of the worst in the country over the past 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
So you Google the kid and you look at his career and you say, okay, he had a redshirt year. That's not out of the ordinary. But then he only appeared in 5 games as a redshirt freshman, didn't log any catches on an offense that really, really struggled. So how do you look at that? Right. How do you interpret that? Do you interpret it as, well, there's not anybody catching passes in the Iowa offense, or, man, this kid can't get on the field and catch passes at Iowa? There's 2 ways to look at it. So when a coaching staff and a recruiting staff, and remember, because of the way that thing is structured over there, they have people whose specific job is to go in and dig up every ounce of information, every video they can find, whether it be from Iowa or high school, and you try to do projections based off every piece of information that you're given. And so when this kid goes in the portal and A&M offers, that told me, okay, because I trust the way the operation is running over there under Mike Elko, they probably see something here that isn't available just to the naked eye or just can be interpreted through the stats, which are non-existent. So I start doing some calling and digging around yesterday whenever the kid actually DM'd me on Twitter and said, hey, I'm in town today. I was like, oh, okay. Because when they offered him, I thought my first initial reaction was this may be something just to cover their bases if Javarius Johnson from Auburn either decides not to visit or they feel like he may be trending elsewhere. It's a practice that we've seen them put into play so far. Just this staff does such a good job of covering their bases and just don't make a backup option in terms of timing. If you're interested in the kid, let's get him on campus. Let's get a feel for him. And then we can decide, do we need to make a huge push for him or not? So the kid DMs me and tells me he's on campus. I'm like, okay, that must mean there's something a little bit more than meets the eye with this recruitment in terms of past production and what they see him like in the future. So you start making calls around. From what I understand, the Iowa wide receiver coach has been telling people they were super high on this kid in the future in their program. And they thought he was going to go into next season as one of their premier guys on offense, which that's surprised me. And that, again, it's Iowa, but that's still Big Ten football that's won a lot of games. These guys know what they're looking at in terms of talent. Okay, that's an interesting data point. And then people have raved about him off the field, in the locker room, culture, the type of kid he is. And we know that seems to be something that this coaching staff is putting an extremely high value on. On top of that, he's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. So when you combine all of that, there's some real intrigue to this player. Now, does he make an immediate impact on next year's roster? I don't know that. Nobody really knows that. They obviously think that he has the skill set to do it, or they wouldn't be taking him. But they also think he has the skill set that can develop over time. And maybe if he doesn't impact the every down, every offensive snap production of next year's offense, he may be able to do it in the future. And he's also not going to be a problem if he's got to wait. You know what I'm saying? So he's a good locker room guy, good culture guy. So it made a lot of sense for them to take him at a position that needs help now and help for the future, I think.
And weren't other big schools, Louisville, Ole Miss, they were all trying to get
out of high school? I don't know about out of the portal. Like, this kind of came about quick, and I'd have to go through and really – I'm sure he tweeted all of his offers out of the portal on social media. But, yeah, like, it's certainly an intriguing body style, good length, 6'2", 185, 6'3", something like that, and probably going to play on the outside when you look at just that body style. And that does not another interesting thing is that it doesn't appear that his decision is going to have any impact on their recruitment of Javarius Johnson, or I don't think his decision to commit to Texas A&M is going to impact Javarius Johnson's outlook on coming to play here as a grad transfer, because Javarius is an inside more slot guy, and they're going to need help there with Jabri Barber being out for what appears to be an extended period of time.
So Nick was just telling me in my ear, U of H, Pitt, Ole Miss, Iowa State, Vanderbilt, and Fresno State. We're all after him right now.
So that group of 6 schools is better than the offers that he had coming out of high school. So
people see something.
Right, and then maybe the reports that were coming out of Iowa City about the quality of kid he is and how high they were on his future on the field, maybe that started to emanate across the country. You know, those coaching circles – they can be kind of small, and information can get passed around pretty quickly. So maybe the information that made its way to College Station was also getting to all those other schools going, hey, like, it's a really low-maintenance, high-upside player if you want to get him into your program.
Potentially one spot left, too?
Yeah, I think Javarius Johnson is now the lone remaining target, and it's just so hard to make definitive statements in this era of portal recruiting. But I think that if once he makes his decision whether to come to A&M or not, I think we're going to know finally after he makes up his mind what this fall roster is going to look like completed. And that closes one door on the upcoming football season. And I think the coaching staff will probably be a little bit relieved that now they can then focus all of their attention on the high school class, and we need to talk a little bit more about that because they are on the verge of creating some real momentum in the high school ranks, specifically in the state of Texas.
Yeah. As for Johnson, he's the kind of guy who would come here to play, right? He's a grad transfer. He's been productive in the SEC. I think A&M can sell him on. We have a need at this position. You're remaining in the best league in America. We've got a quarterback that distributes the football at a really high level to a lot of different targets. Like, there's some selling points there to get him to finish his career, and that's what those guys that are grad transfers are looking for. Like he's not going to want to go somewhere where there's a cloudy depth chart. And with Jabri Barber's injury, I think that there's some room that is cleared up. I saw, not suggesting A&M would be interested because it looks like they've already had their sights set, but former UTSA wide receiver and also was at Ole Miss, Zachariah Franklin re-entered the portal last week. So some other names have arrived portal-wise, but it looks like A&M
we haven't – there's a kid at North Dakota State that I think they were entertaining, they were looking at. But as of this morning, I think it's Javarius Johnson. Now, if Javarius comes in and says – I think I want to go somewhere else, maybe they turn the heat up on one of these other guys that we haven't heard about. That's kind of the nature of recruiting in the portal, at least from what we've seen with this coaching staff. I mean, the Josh Elliscar stuff happened out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, and really how fast did the Solomon DeShields stuff come together? So, it can change within 24 hours a lot of the times when dealing with portal recruiting. But I think we're on the verge of being completely done with it and knowing exactly the names on this roster for the upcoming season.
All right, let's talk about something you were alluding to. Recruiting wise, they got some real momentum going right now, and I feel like it's been fairly consistent this offseason.
Yeah, and that's something that I wanted to write about, and I did this week with my big recruiting article, was just the calendar has changed so much, but there's still, for a lot of college coaches, this is a little bit of a downtime. Now, they're going to go on the road and see kids face-to-face, but in terms of like really turning up the heat in recruiting, once spring ball's over with, you have this little bit of a lull between then and then when they start these summer official visits. We know that every school across the country, at least any big recruiting school and rivals of Texas A&M, they're going to have some type of summer event. You get ready to plan for that. These on-campus camps have become a massive deal for a lot of coaching staffs. We obviously saw that turned up to another level under Jimbo here. I expect Mike Elko and his staff to kind of put the same amount of importance on those camps for getting eyes-on evaluations, hands-on evaluations with some of their top targets and some of their commitments. So this time, late April, early May, late May, that's kind of been, okay, we may get the coaching and recruiting staff a couple of weeks off here and there. A&M has taken that opportunity and turned it into an advantage for them. And it may change going forward, but I think this new coaching staff is looking to capitalize in a moment where maybe the recruiting machine across the countries, those machines aren't up and running as vigorously as they usually are. And so what have we seen? Well, in the month of April, what was it? I mean, I can sit here and look at it. Was it 6 high school commitments in the month of April? And April is a busy month, but the back half of April. So let's just talk about since April 20th, which was the spring game, okay? So they got Solomon DeShields on the 22nd. They got Shane Calhoun on the 22nd. Those are both portal. And they got Jamar Beal Goins on the 28th, okay? A lot of that high school activity happened in early April. So they've added 2 out of the portal and 1 out of high school since the end of spring football. But what they have done is created a massive amount of momentum for a lot of their top targets, specifically in state, since that time, right? When they dispersed the current roster, they sent them out to Tommy Moffitt. They're not working practices anymore with their current team. They have gone out and really done a nice job with guys like Jonah Williams, Kobe Sellers, Nicholas Townsend, Michael Fasusi, Ty Haywood. These are top targets and top players in the state of Texas. There's a couple more out-of-state guys that I think they have really gained some momentum with. Adonis Curry's a corner out of California who we really like where A&M's at there. Kobe Sellers, I mentioned him, but he's got an upcoming decision on May 11th. Texas and Oklahoma are still fighting tooth and nail to try to undo the momentum A&M had created in that one. And so you could look at them and go, wow, like they're already like right at a fringe top 10 class nationally. With the guys I just mentioned in that list of names, if they get 2 or 3 of them, they're going to push in toward the top 5. We could look up on July 4th after all these summer official visits and stuff and go, this class is going to be firmly in the top 5 and could even go higher than that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because the last couple of years, initially A&M was able to sell the vision, right? And then they didn't have any sizzle to their steak. And you said it. It's going to depend how this team looks on the field if they can keep some of these guys. How much goodwill do you think? Is it too hard to kind of put that into a question based on it being so new?
Yeah, it's year one, right? Yeah. You're going to get a new coach bump, and you sell the sizzle again. You have some opportunity to sell the sizzle, and eventually it's going to come down to the steak like we talked so much about with Jimbo. But a new coaching staff, a new vision, a new way of talking about the football program and their vision for it. Olin's article about Landon and Shane Rink, I thought that was an outstanding article, and some of the stuff that the Rink family said about Mike Elko and his genuineness and his ability to sell his vision for the program, I thought that was really noteworthy, and that's something that A&M fans need to read because not only is it a player parent, but it's also a prominent high school coach in Greater Houston. It's also a guy that has been through the recruiting process on his own and understands what coaches are trying to sell for their program. And he's heard it all, and he talks about the professionalism of the recruiting pitches nowadays and how you really kind of got to do your homework to decipher and kind of pick through everything that you're being told from all these different schools. And he said what stood out about Mike Elko was just his genuine care for the program and his genuine want to build relationships with these kids. And So there were some really good quotes in that article, and I want to commend OB for it was a job well done. But I think Elko is going to benefit from a new coach bump, but he's also going to benefit from the hard work and the organization and the structure that he has implemented across the street. I think those are going to reap benefits for Texas A&M recruiting. I mean, he's already come up with ideas. In the past, how many times did we ever see football recruits go across the street for baseball atmospheres? Now, the baseball atmospheres this year have been incredible, but that was never utilized until this spring. And I bet there's probably been 10 to 20, probably closer to 20 football recruits taking games at Bluebell Park just because the 12th man is such a big selling part of the sales pitch on these football recruiting weekends. Say, hey, we can go show you what not even a tenth of what Kyle Field looks like right across the street tonight. Let's go get you a taste of what we're talking about here so that we don't just talk about it, you see it with your own eyes, and you have a chance to see how this fan base interacts with their teams.
Yeah, and they did that with basketball too. So, Coach Elko's finding ways.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They did it those junior days. So we're taking all those kids across there to see Reed Arena as well.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Let's take a couple of these names and just kind of break it down. Galveston Ball's Jonah Hill. You mentioned him.
Jonah Williams.
Excuse me. Jonah Hill's the actor, right?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Very, very different skill sets.
Hey, they both work out. Jonah Hill's lost a lot of weight, buddy.
Jonah Hill's not nearly as funny now that he's gotten skinny.
No, I like when overweight comedians should stay overweight. They're funnier.
So now you are endorsing obesity in America.
For my laughter.
I'll clip that. Okay, so David Nuño, health professional, endorses.
I don't know about professional. Health nut?
Health nut, yes.
Maybe at times.
Health psycho endorses obesity.
Jonah Hill, we can talk about his career later, but Jonah Williams, let's talk a little bit.
A&M's made up enormous ground there. I mean, that was just about, the recruiting world, the recruiting circles. That one was just about conceded to Oklahoma earlier this spring, and now that is very much not the case, and that's a huge credit to Mike Elko. It's a huge credit to Ish Aristide and Jordan Peterson and Jay Bateman. The recruiting staff has been fantastic with him. His brother, we talked about it a lot. His brother signed with Texas A&M baseball, then got picked in the second round by the Texas Rangers, and so chose a pro career over coming to college. But there's some affinity from the family for Texas A&M because that's where his brother signed, and that wasn't going to be enough to ensure that Jonah ended up at Texas A&M. But it does help their standing. I think that his family was obviously comfortable sending his older brother here to play college sports, so why wouldn't they be comfortable sending Jonah here? And now I think the idea of playing football at Texas A&M has really grown on Jonah. I think the Aggies are in an outstanding spot. I think being a Galveston Ball kid and then one of the greatest Aggies of all time, being a Galveston Ball graduate as well, like there's a connection to make there. Outside of – there's so much that can happen in recruiting, and I don't think – I would hesitate to even say that A&M is a clear-cut leader right now. And I know they've gotten crystal ball predictions and stuff like that. That's not something we do. I like where they're at, and very much more so than where they were a month and a half ago.
All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back with more. Right now, Milliken Reserve time, farm-to-table community in College Station. You got homes there, you got trails, you got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature. If you like being outdoors and having fun, like most of us, if you're not a communist, you should go to Milliken Reserve. 2,600 acres of open space. You got the farms, you got the trails, the 30 miles of trails. You got the beautiful homes out there, and they want to connect families with nature, but at the same time, they want to connect you with each other. They've got a beautiful network of trails throughout a wooded landscape. You've got the walking paths, the equestrian paths, the creeks, the ponds, the gathering areas. It is a place for family to come generation after generation and just come together and enjoy. You've got all the white-tailed deer you can imagine, the songbirds, the rabbits, the turtles, and homeowners there at Milliken Reserve sharing a legacy of conservation, which means generation after generation, you're coming back to that same pristine countryside place. It is a beautiful place. And when we talk about the neighborhoods, you got the creek, homes on a 10-plus acre wooded estate. You've got the hollow, homes in a private and gated community. And you've got the meadows, which is homes responsive to their natural surroundings. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. That is millikenreserve.com. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is Recruiting Country, brought to you by Caprock Health System. Before we turn our attention to baseball, Kobe Sellers' commitment date coming up here next week. Is that correct?
Yeah, May 11th.
May 11th, okay. And I know we talked about it last segment, but just hitting this right here. Feeling good?
Yeah.
Good-ish?
Again, Oklahoma and Texas trying to claw their way back into it, and that should tell you a lot. Like,
right.
If they're having to put together final sales pitches for his future in their program, then you got to kind of like where A&M's at going into a decision week. But again, everything's so fluid in recruiting that I don't think anything is ever done until it's done. And
even when it's done, it's not done.
Right. And now with the player movement and just going, I was looking at the boards during the break, and the Bostic commitment's got 77 comments on it, with people fighting over, why did A&M do this? But do you not realize that player movement now, like if the kid comes in and he doesn't see a future at Texas A&M,
he'll leave.
He will leave in December.
Yep.
And A&M will go back into the portal and try to act like I don't get.
You've got the spots.
Yeah, you got spots. You have scholarships to offer. Yeah, use them.
Yeah. All right, let's turn our attention to baseball. Good to see Braden Montgomery getting back to Braden Montgomery things.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't going to be long. He's just too good to keep down for an extended period of time. And what I wrote this week was the people that are probably more upset about Braden Montgomery struggling for a little while, probably even more upset and more frustrated about it than Jim Schlossnagle and Mike Early were Rice's Jose Cruz Jr. and Mike Bianco this weekend at Ole Miss, because that's not going to be the status quo for very long. And it was really good to see Braden not only come out and have success last night, but he had a home run opposite field left-handed. Then he switches right-handed and hits a double to the opposite field gap. Like, not only are the results really good, but the direction, the ball flight, that indicates to me that he has completely reset himself and back to being right on the baseball. So, like, the direction that the ball flies off the bat, to me, is an indicator of how good and grooved a guy is feeling at the plate. And then it goes to quality of contact. So you can look at both. If Braden would have come up last night and hit an absolute rocket right at the second baseman in his first at bat, okay, that's a missile. Like, that's a good quality step forward. The fact that he did it and went to the opposite field, that's a huge step forward, and a pretty clear indicator that he has flushed whatever was ailing him over that rough stretch. And I talked to him. We got to interview him last night, Monaco and I, after the game, and he talked about, like, he goes, I don't know that I've ever been that upset getting on a bus about my personal performance. He said, but coming back home was a good chance for me to just reset. It wasn't anything mechanical. It was just about me resetting my mind and flushing what has happened over the last week. And I mean, he's such a talented player. He's such a smart kid. He does a really good job of just kind of combing through the emotions and the ups and downs of a season. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. And you think about last night, the at-bats that he didn't get hits in, he hit 2 absolute missiles again. So, like, he's right back on the ball, and I would expect him to have a big weekend in Oxford.
Ronnie, you talked about the home run numbers, what they could be, right? And we're getting closer and closer to that. But I don't think any of us could have expected for Gavin Grohovic to be this close to the home runs that Jace, maybe you expected it, to Jace's 21 last year. He's at 18 now. And Gavin be as close to 30 home runs with, still.
Jace be as close to 30.
Excuse me, Jace being as close to 30 as he is. And potentially, I don't think he's going to catch number 1 all time this year. But, I mean, it's not put it this way. He's going to be in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, you'd obviously have to put Jace already as one of the greatest power hitters in Texas A&M baseball history. You put Braden Montgomery up there as one of the greatest seasons in Texas A&M history. If Jace keeps going at the rate he's been going with the ball leaving the ballpark, you'd have to put this season right up there with some of the greatest in Texas A&M history. And for Jace, he's such a happy-go-lucky kid, and he's 20 years old, but the way he interacts with people and just how happy he is, to me, he's like the same kid I got to know when he was 9 or 10 years old. Just happy-go-lucky, smiling, wants to be joking and laughing with everybody. I don't think Jace realizes that tying John Byington and the weight that Byington's name still carries around these parts, how big of a deal that is. So that's something that Jace needs to be commended for right now. I mean, that's – you're walking amongst the legends of Aggie baseball already, halfway or a little bit over halfway through your sophomore season. They're pushing that 1999 team, that team total. We'll see if they get there. I heard y'all talking in the first hour about Ole Miss and how they do give up some homers. And they do, but that pitching staff's got a lot of high-velocity guys, and I went and checked the weather report. It's going to be a little bit of a north wind this weekend, like a late spring cool front pushing through Oxford, which will blow in from left field at Swayze Field. Their ballpark is set up very similarly to the way Olsen Field is, in that a north wind usually keeps the ball in the ballpark. So that may help out Ole Miss on the weekend and curtail a little bit of A&M's power potential. But, they've got guys that hit the ball so hard that it really doesn't matter. But when you get this team playing with a south wind, it's only a matter of time before the offense just explodes. And they're hitting, 4 homers last night, 16 runs, and now they have – we talked about on Monday run outputs, and they were only 5 behind, I think, the 2023 team in way less games. They passed 2023 in runs last night, and now they're only 10 behind 2022 with
2 series left.
With 2 series left, and some postseason in the SEC tournament and then regional, and maybe even beyond that. So, this is a historical regular season. Andrew Monaco and I were talking last night about what has this regular season felt like. And now these last 2 weekends, it's a chance to either really stamp it with a star in terms of great regular seasons in A&M sports history, or it could take some shine off of it depending on how they finish. So there's still a lot of work to do. Like, I think if they win the series in Oxford, they have completely wrapped up a national seed, regardless of what happens against Arkansas. But if you win the series on the road in Oxford, then you're going to come home with a chance to win the West and maybe even win the regular season title. So there's going to be something to play for that last weekend. But let's just assume that the numbers stay similar to what we've seen and that they win games in these final 2 weekends. And I would think that in terms of just – since the time that I moved to College Station in 2010, I've obviously watched A&M football for a long time and A&M sports. This regular season would have to be up there with, like, it reminds me of Johnny in 2012, and they just overwhelmed people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and you went into games going, okay, if the other team scores first in football, who cares? Like, Johnny's going to A&M and Johnny, they can rattle off 49 in a row just like that. We've seen that so many times from this Aggie baseball team this season. So it's tough to put things into historical context while they're still ongoing. But I think when we look back at what this team did, at least in the regular season, we're going to go, okay, without question, one of the premier teams in Aggie baseball history and probably in Aggie sports history.
By the way, Tennessee's got Vandy left, and they also have South Carolina. Just if you're wondering, part of the race, what A&M's going to have to be.
Arkansas's got Mississippi State, then obviously comes here. Kentucky has got. Well, you just said one of them is. You have it, Callie?
Vanderbilt. I know they have.
Yeah, they do have Vandy.
And
you might be right.
Kentucky's got, I got it right here, Vanderbilt and Florida.
Florida. They're at Florida, I think, to end the season. And that's going to be a Florida club that is playing for
their postseason lives.
Yes. Yep. And it's do or die time in Gainesville. And even though their overall record doesn't look great, I think they've got 10 conference wins. And so they're going to be right on the bubble. So they've got to win games. And so maybe you get a desperate Florida team help you out. But not all that dissimilar from last week when A&M walked into Baton Rouge. You're going into Oxford with a team that's got their back against the wall. So you are going to get Ole Miss and that crowd's best effort. I hope that last weekend going into that atmosphere in Baton Rouge and kind of having to navigate through that when they didn't play well, I hope that has set them up well for from a mentality standpoint going into this weekend. Because, like I said, if you go into Ole Miss and you handle business, you ain't got to worry about playing on the road again until you get to Omaha. And I think that would be a massive, massive deal for this team.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. When you're looking for a vehicle for your loved ones, when you're looking at for yourself or your family, you should go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet and start online when you go there so you can see the inventory that they have, the great pricing, and the great vehicles that they're going to have there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. I always like to talk about the customer service there because that's what they're known for. You know you're going to be taken care of before, during, and after the process with their complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers, and they'll do it fast, guys. They are fantastic when it comes to that. And when you're ready to upgrade your vehicle, get something a little bit bigger, get something for your high school age kid, whatever it may be, let Caldwell Country Chevrolet help you through that process. Find the right vehicle that makes the right sense for you and your family. About a 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. All right, let's continue vibing with Texas A&M baseball here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go to the hotline. Kendall Rodgers joining us from D1 Baseball to break it all down. Kendall, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing excellent. Yourself?
I'm good, man. So let's look at LSU and obviously Rice last night. We'll start off with the LSU series. Any major takeaways from that one?
Not really. I thought the most illuminating thing about that series to me was Jay Johnson's comments after the final game. You know, I think if you look back at his post-game presser, after the final game, he made the comment that he thought they played by far the best they played all year long. And what happened? I mean, A&M in the opening game had a chance to win it in the ninth. A&M in the second game had a chance to win in the ninth. And again, we've talked about this just repeatedly week to week, but like, I feel like you have to play at an outrageously high level to beat A&M, no matter how A&M plays. And that's kind of what happened over the weekend. LSU, give them a lot of credit. I mean, they got big hits. They had really good at-bats. They pitched at a very high level. At the end of the day, when you dissect those games, LSU could have easily gotten swept over the weekend, and they played great. So it just gives you an idea of just the potential of this A&M team. I think, obviously, you don't want to strike out 39 times in 3 games. But if you're Jim Schlesinger, you've got to really like how your team responded in the series finale. I thought that did, that was my takeaway is they responded really well after getting punched in the mouth a little bit the first 2 days in Baton Rouge.
And that being said, I think you have Tennessee as probably your best team in the country with A&M slightly behind.
Yeah, I mean, they're 1A. To me, they're 1A and 1B. I mean, I think they're very similar teams. I mean, both teams aren't perfect on the mound. I think both teams are solid on the mound. And I think both teams from an offensive standpoint are just relentless. So I would have them 1A and 1B. I think they're both very, very good teams that I fully expect to be in Omaha and maybe even playing each other for the national championship.
That would be cool. How about the way they responded yesterday, and specifically Braden Montgomery, but the team getting back to what they do, which is mashing homers and run rolling teams?
Yeah. Well, I don't mean to be mean, but the best recipe for getting back on track is to play Rice. I mean, the Owls just aren't a very good team, as we saw from just the walks and mistakes and things like that. So that's kind of exactly what the doctor ordered for A&M. And so now you go to Ole Miss, and again, I think you look at you look at the series kind of like you did the LSU series. It certainly will not be the box in terms of atmosphere. There's a lot of apathy around Oxford, but again, you're playing a team that is going to have to play the best series of the year just to have a chance to beat you in a series. So I think if you're A&M, you need to have a killer instinct. So I think if you can get off to a really good start this weekend, I don't think it's going to be an LSU scenario where they're going to play lights out. I think Ole Miss, if you can get on them early, I wouldn't say they're going to fold, but I don't think they have the potential that LSU does in the 3-game series.
How about the accomplishment of winning every midweek game, all these non-conference games, doing it and sweeping the state of Texas?
Well, it's huge. I mean, we talk about how unimportant midweek games are so much, but I mean the fact that you go undefeated the way you did, and you can look at some other teams. I mean, let's look at Florida. Let's look at Texas, teams who have some ugly midweek losses, and what's happened because of that. Their RPI suffered. So just running the table from a midweek standpoint is massive for your RPI, and so it's a big accomplishment. I don't care who you're playing; it's impressive to be able to do that.
No doubt. We're talking to Kendall Rodgers here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Let's talk about the season Gavin Grohovic has put together. 18 home runs. The guy leads off games all the time with a home run. He puts A&M up in the first inning as much as possible. Just your thoughts on how his freshman campaign has gone and how he continues to be consistent.
Yeah, the thing I like about Gavin is, I felt like he struggled in a couple of games at LSU. Defensively, he was a little iffy that one day. He had some at-bats that you were like, you could kind of see the hamster wheel spinning in his head a little bit. And what happened? He finishes the weekend with a bang. And that kind of just gives you an idea of just the maturity and the advancement of his skill set, that, you can go on a road to a hostile atmosphere, have a couple of defensive plays that, quite frankly, were not the best plays in the world, and he would probably even admit that. But to be able to bounce back from that just gives you an idea of who he is. And so, he won't win Freshman of the Year in college baseball just because there's a guy named Drew Burris out there at Georgia Tech who's just had an outrageous year. But, boy, he is in the top 2 or 3 for me when you just look at what he's meant to A&M at the hot corner and what he's meant to them from an offensive standpoint. Like, how many teams have a true freshman leading off their lineup for a top 2, top 3 team in the country? It's not very common. So kudos to him. He's having an awesome year.
Jay Slavitt, 9 home runs from being the all-time leader at Texas A&M. Dalen Holt did it with 56, and he's right behind him. And I don't think we'll see it this year, but it's going to be early next year.
Yeah, I mean, he's not out of the woods this year. I mean, if he gets a couple this weekend, gets gets one next weekend. Let's say they run the table in Hoover and play a few games. I mean, it's not out of the question, right? Because you got regional supers, potentially Omaha. So, I mean, I wouldn't be that shocked if he got there this year. But I mean, yeah, just, what's really interesting about Jace is when he was coming out of high school, I talked to a lot of scouts about him, and kind of the knock on him. What's funny is like they said, hey, he's not a very confident hitter. Like he's not very, like he's really good, but he's not ultra confident in what he's doing. And like he's been the polar opposite at A&M. I feel like he has been a really confident hitter at A&M. Obviously, he had a few at-bats in Baton Rouge that, he would like to have back. But, he's just a powerful presence in that lineup. And it just seems like even if he strikes out a couple of times, like he eventually figures it out, right? Like he has a rough weekend, and all of a sudden, in Baton Rouge, he gets a home run and kind of finishes things off with a bang. So I'm a huge fan, and it's a big reason why he'll be a top, 2 or 3 pick in the draft next year.
Who do you think gets the last couple spots in the tourney from the SEC? Is it LSU? Is it Florida? Who's getting in?
Yeah, I like Florida's chances right now. I mean, if you look at Florida, this weekend being at home against Kentucky, I actually think they'll upset Kentucky in that series. I think with Florida, with having a lot to play for, I think they'll upset UK 2-3. That would get them to 12 wins, and that would mean they just need to win one game at Georgia to make the tournament, as long as they're staying above 500, and they should be able to do that. So I think they'll be in the tournament. LSU is the interesting one for me. I've been saying this for the last couple of days, but, I mean, it would not shock me after the way LSU played over the weekend for them to go to Alabama and lose 2 out of 3. Alabama has a really good lineup, as I think A&M saw, just really, really mature at bats up and down the lineup. I think that would be a tough matchup for LSU. So I think LSU is going to need to go in the final weekend, needing to definitely win 2 or 3, and probably even need to sweep Ole Miss without a win in Hoover. If they win a game in Hoover, it makes it where you can only need 1 this weekend and 2 against Ole Miss. But man, if I'm LSU, I don't want to leave that to chance. I don't want to go to Hoover having to win a game.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We're talking to Kendall Rodgers here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. How desperate is Ole Miss this weekend? We asked you last week about LSU. Now it's Ole Miss's turn to be desperate.
Yeah, I mean, it's about as desperate can get. The biggest thing with Ole Miss is they haven't really pitched at a high level at all this year. They've had some injuries, but they just haven't been very good. The other thing is they find ways to lose. If you look back at the Auburn series over the weekend, they win the first 2 games. The final game, it looks like they've got it locked up. All of a sudden, wild pitch, and then another wild pitch, game over, they lose, and they don't sweep the series. So they have stretches. They have stretches where they can be a pretty good team. They're just like the most inconsistent team in the league. They'll play really well for 5 innings and then look like the Bad News Bears the rest of the weekend. So I think the biggest thing for A&M going into the weekend is you got to keep them from getting in the groove. You got to keep them from starting to feel pretty good about themselves long term. If they do that, they can give you some trouble. If A&M plays well, I just don't see how Ole Miss wins that series. And frankly, I would probably pick A&M to sweep it if A&M plays well.
And then they take care of this series. Are they a lock for a national seed?
A&M?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you win this weekend. I mean, you might as well go ahead and get your hotel reservations because they'll be in assuming they win a regional, they'll be in a super at home. And so, yeah, this weekend's the clincher. I mean, I think they're honestly, I think they're probably in pretty good shape no matter what. As long as they don't get swept and get swept. But I mean, even if they lost 7-3, they win the Arkansas series, they're right back in the saddle. So, yeah, this weekend to me is the clincher. If you win that series, you might as well just go ahead and say you'll be a top 8 seed because you will be.
Kendall, last thing for you. Texas is playing better ball. How are they looking?
Yeah, you know what? I was over in Austin on Saturday and watched the Horns, and I'll tell you what, I don't think they have the staying power pitching-wise to get to Omaha, but I'll tell you what, when you look at the top of their offensive lineup with Jalen Flores, Jared Thomas, Max Ballou has really blown up this year from a power standpoint. They have a dangerous offensive lineup, so I think they're one of those teams that, frankly, if I was a top 8 seed, I probably would not want them on my regional because if they can just find a way to extend you to a Monday, you're going to be in a slugfest with them because they can really hit. So the good news for A&M is I think A&M's probably going to be too high of a seed to get the second-place team in the Big 12, but you never know. But, yeah, they're definitely improved. Their pitching certainly struggles. but they're vastly improved offensively than they were maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Kendall, great stuff as always, buddy. Thanks so much for your time.
You got it. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.
You too. Kendall Rodgers there. D1 Baseball. Appreciate his time. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with some baseball stats that you need to know from Ethan Jones. Right now, if you're looking to do something different, you want to enjoy an experience, you need to go to Hush and Whisper, guys. That's a different experience where you can learn, you can kick back, enjoy some nice beverages, and just enjoy the good times there at Hush and Whisper. They are where they are a distillery located in the Verisco building of downtown Bryan. Cocktail lounge. They've got the distillery. They want to defy convention and distill true to grain glass spirits there with their white whiskey, with their original vodka, and their original gin. It is a cool place to go just to enjoy, right? You want to learn, you want to, reserve a tour and see exactly how the process is to make their whiskey and actually get a taste test out there. You can do that. You can reserve a tour. You can do just a tasting, or you can just do them both, right? Book an event, meetings, celebrations, and team building. Come for a cocktail or a mocktail. And when you got people out of town that are visiting you, this is a great place to go. They feel it's kind of like modern and different. It's got like a little 1930s vibe to it. And you'll walk in, you'll be like, am I really in the Brazos Valley? Am I in Bryan? Yes, you are. You're having a great time there at Hush and Whisper. Go check it out, the website, hushandwhisper.com. They're open Thursdays through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., 219 North Main Street in Bryan. It's Hush and Whisper at hushandwhisper.com. All right, time to end the day with Double Daves. We're going to do caller number 12 here on TexAgs Radio at 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Daves, who have been serving Aggie Land since 1984. They've got the pizza. They've got your world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on Double Daves, and your favorites are on their way. Ethan Jones is here. We're going to get to him in a moment. Let's get an update from Callie there at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Aggie women's golf struggling out there, right?
Yeah, they're definitely struggling today. Overall, they're 10 over, and today on the course they're 13 over, currently in 6th. So they need to
How many
find a way.
shots off the lead or shots off the 5th spot are they?
4.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
oh man, that's
they've
not
got a ways to climb back in. They're on the back half of the course, so hopefully they can figure something out.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Let's go there to Ethan Jones. Ethan, you got some baseball stats for us?
Yeah, so over the past few weeks, I've compared A&M to some of the past national championships, some of the best teams in the SEC. One thing I haven't done is compared to non-SEC teams. So we're going to do that real quick.
Yep.
And the teams are the 6 non-SEC teams in the top 10 that I'm comparing to. First, let's look at like records, who does the best in the most important categories. So overall record, the win percentage, A&M has the best with 83.7. Clemson and East Carolina are in second. Top 25 win percentage, Clemson takes this category with a 77.8 win percentage, but they're only 7-2. We're second with 72.7, but we're 16-6, so much more top 25 games. Conference, Clemson once again is best in conference. We're second with a 66.7 win percentage. Away neutral, Clemson takes it again. They're ranked 1 above us. 76.5 win percentage. We're all the way down at 64.7. Which is 3rd out of that group. Next, let's go to the offense. Let's look at batting average. A&M has a 3.13 batting average, which is 5th among these. When you take all teams, there's 7 among these 7 teams. And the top 10 non-SEC average is 3.14 batting average, so we're pretty much average on that. Runs per game, 9.3 for us. The average of those teams is 8.7, and our 9.3 ranks 2nd. Home runs per game, 2.3 for us, which is the best out of all these teams, a 1.8 for the non-SEC average. Slugging percentage is .591, which is 1st. So once again, you see both of those. We're really good at hitting home runs, slugging percentage, powerful hits. Also, we're the best in walks per game with 6.6, which is 1st. The average is only 5.1. And on-base percentage, we're 1st in this again with 434, which is 1st. The non-SEC average is 415. And looking at the batting, probably us or Virginia stands out as the best. There's a debate for either because Virginia is top in some of the categories too. And Clemson clearly has the worst offense. Do you want me to go over pitching?
We got 20 seconds left, so keep that one for the rewind. Thank you, Ethan. Appreciate you. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Radio. Here on a Wednesday tomorrow, we'll talk to Dalton Hughes. It's his last day at TexAgs, unfortunately, so we'll talk to Dalton to close out the show. We've got the fan show guys in here. We've got a lot of other good stuff, AT, you name it. It's TexAgs. We'll see you mañana.